right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for your patience. Welcome to the Planning Commission meeting of Monday, June 9th, 2025. I now call the meeting to order. It's time for the Pledge of Allegiance, and Commissioner Martinez is going to take a brief break and lead us in that.
All right, please stand. Place your right hand over your heart. Begin.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Anna, will you please do the voice roll call?
Chair Harlan,
Here.
Vice Chair Zick,
Here.
Commissioner Rojas,
Present.
Commissioner Klepak,
Here.
Commissioner Andrade,
Here.
Commissioner Dixon,
Here.
Commissioner Martinez.
Here.
We have no announcements or presentations this evening, which takes us to public comments. Public comments will be heard at this time on items that are not listed on the agenda but are within our jurisdiction. I'll open public comment, and if you'd like to speak, please come to the podium, or if you're participating by Zoom, use the raise hand option at the bottom of the screen, or if you're joining by phone and like to speak, please press star 9. All right, first up.
Good evening, Commission. Jay Humphrey, Costa Mesa resident. Just two things tonight. One, I'm looking forward to the input that winds up by happening on the Fairview Developmental Center from your last meeting, indicating that you did see some misconnect, and I appreciate that. So I'm looking forward to see where that goes. Secondarily, I hope that commissioners as well as staff are responding to the Randall Preserve. As we all know, Randall Preserve is a large tract of land to the southwest of us. And that piece of land was up for development years ago and potentially caused great problems to the traffic issues in Costa Mesa at the lower end. And that successfully has been converted into a preserve. And will be functional, but they want input on what is wanted to be put in there as far as resources and what have you for that preserve. And I hope that everybody in Costa Mesa will in fact step up, because it abuts us, it is right beside us, it affects our community tremendously, and it's a unique opportunity for us to have a wonderful place to experience. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else in chambers? Seeing none. Anna, do we have anybody on Zoom or phone?
No, we do not, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, okay. Great. I'll now close public comments. Planning Commissioner comments and suggestions. Let's start to my left today. Commissioner Martinez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No comments today.
Okay. Commissioner Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going through a residential remodel myself, and we had some starts and stops and hiccups with Tessa in the past, and I think there's still some things that are a hiccup for the development community. But one thing I was really encouraged by in talking to some of the staff is that they're very, very well aware of some of those hiccups, and they're working actively and proactively to hopefully try and fix them. So for anybody out there who's frustrated with Tessa, when I had reached out and talked to them about the problem I was having, they knew precisely the problem I was having and gave me examples of other folks that had had it and how they'd fixed it. So there is some good kind of iterative problem solving going on. So I just want to provide that feedback because I was pleasantly surprised. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Andrade.
Yes. First, I wanted to acknowledge some of the challenges that our neighboring county has, County of LA, and for the community wide here in Costa Mesa and beyond to just be reminded to access organizations that can support in any way. There's a great Orange County-wide site called Orange County Rapid Response. You can find them online. They're very active on Instagram and social media. And also for our large population, para nuestra comunidad latina que necesita recursos durante estos momentos difíciles que estamos viendo con situaciones de legalidad e inmigración en nuestra comunidad. Les recomiendo que investiguen con Orange County Rapid Response. Ellos están en Instagram y en el internet para proveer recursos, representaciones que cualquier persona necesite. I basically just said the same thing in Spanish. And then secondly, I would love to first appreciate such a great attendance today in the space, and I want to make a pitch. I work for Orange County United Way, and one of the things that we focus are establishing resources and solutions to ending the homelessness crisis, bring affordability across communities. So our organization is going to be leading a conversation, what we call a free social impact networking mixer. We're bringing a great topic at hand with neighbors of representatives of the city of Irvine, 5 Point, as well as a property manager called First Service Residential. And the topic is thriving communities and thriving companies, the corporate role in housing solutions. And really this conversation is to highlight best practices that the city of Irvine has established in the Great Park neighborhoods and bringing affordable housing to meet Irvine's RENA numbers. So not only bring effective business solutions to developers in Irvine, such as 5 Point and other great organizations, but then also meet the city's expectations on bringing affordable housing to their community. So this is a free event, so anybody that is interested, please feel free to send an email to christinet@unitedwayoc.org. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you for that important information. Commissioner Klepak.
Nothing from me. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Rojas.
I have no comment today. Thank you.
Okay. Vice Chair Zick.
Nothing.
Okay. I wasn't planning on saying anything. The only thing I wanted to comment on tonight was it's the end of the school year for most people, beginning of the summer. So congratulations to all the graduates, and for the parents, buckle up. All right. We have consent calendar this evening, 3 items tonight. All matters will be listed under the consent calendar considered to be routine and will be acted upon in one motion. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless members of the Planning Commission, staff, or the public request specific items to be discussed or removed from the consent calendar for discussion. Items removed will be discussed and voted upon immediately following Planning Commission action and on the remainder of the consent calendar. Do we have any items pulled tonight?
Yes, we have all 3 minutes pulled by Jay Humphrey.
Okay. Mr. Humphrey?
Good evening again. Jay Humphrey, Costa Mesa resident. I want to amend item number 1, which is the minutes from last meeting. In that, it said that I defended the proposed parking ratio. And it may be that somebody misunderstood what I actually said. I am absolutely against the parking ratio. I think it is way too low to even suggest, as this suggests, that it's okay to have an inadequate standard be okay because you can just let it fall out onto the street around the property is inappropriate to me. So I would like the record to be amended that I do not support, under any circumstances, the reduced parking standard to 1.75. It is inadequate to the project. It's inadequate across the board. I understand if all those folks at the Hive, I'll talk about the Hive later. That's item 1. So I ask for that amendment to be made on that, so we're clear. Do we take that action now before I go to the next items? Because of I just don't know how you want to do it.
Go ahead. You can
Just
do
go ahead.
all of them concurrently.
I'm kind of at a loss. I don't know how you guys can pass item 2 and item 3 because only Mr. Zick was at one of the meetings, and I don't see any way that you're going to be able to vote on it without any prior knowledge unless you actually looked at it, watched it, saw exactly what happened in it. And of course, there would be, under that circumstance of people who actually participated, it'd be impossible for anybody to vote on that. I understand things get late. I understand things get delayed. These are 4 years old, almost 3 years old, pardon me. So these are very old items that, for whatever reason, they have not come up to you. You guys should figure out some way to make those appropriate so everybody can, in fact, vote on the meetings. And hopefully you've all had a chance to review those meetings to be able to make a sensible vote that's 4 years old on an item that you did not participate in. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Anyone else in chambers wish to speak? Anna, anybody on Zoom or phone?
No, there is not.
Okay. Question for the city attorney. Obviously, as Mr. Humphrey points out, some of these minutes are fairly old, and there is a limited number of members of this body who voted on it. Is there any other remedy than just us approving the minutes?
Well, there's no other remedy other than not approving the minutes. The planning commission, whether or not the particular commissioners were present during those meetings, is certainly entitled to vote and approve the minutes if they believe they familiarize themselves with the minutes, and the minutes are, in fact, an accurate reflection of what took place.
Okay. All right, do we have a motion on the minutes?
Move to approve items 1, 2, and 3, and amend Mr. Humphrey's comment to change the word defended to did not support.
All right, do we have a second? I'll second. All right, any comments?
No.
Okay. All right, let's call for the question, Anna.
That motion carries 7-0.
Okay, thank you. We have 2 public hearings tonight. Anna, would you please read the title for public hearing number 1?
Public hearing item number 1, recommendation to the City Council on a mitigated negative declaration general plan amendment PGPA-24-0001, rezone master plan PMAP-24-0002, and tentative tract map number 19351 for the development of 40 residential condominium units located at 220, 222, 234, and 236 Victoria Place. Please note we have received public comments on this item. This is a call for any ex parte communications.
Okay, commissioners, any ex parte communications? Commissioner Martinez?
I visited the site today and attended the city council screening in August 2024.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. I'll turn it over to Mr. Mendez to present the item.
Good evening, Chair Harlan and Commissioners. The item before you tonight is a proposed residential common interest development located at 220 Victoria Street, which also includes a request to apply a residential incentive overlay to the project site. The applicant of the proposed project is Bundy Finkel Architects on behalf of WMC LLC. The project site is composed of 1.77 acres located on the north side of Victoria Place, approximately 100 feet west of Newport Boulevard. The site is bounded by Victoria Place to the south, with Jiffy Lube located across the street, office building to the east, an auto service center to the west, and apartments to the north. The site has a general land use designation of general commercial and is zoned C2 general business. These designations do not support a residential use of the property, but instead allow for office and retail services uses. The project site is located within a Measure K corridor that runs along Newport Boulevard. As the commission may recall, Measure K was passed in November 2022 for the purpose of revitalizing commercial corridors by encouraging new housing in commercial and industrial areas while preserving the character of the existing residential neighborhoods. Again, the proposal seeks a residential incentive overlay to be applied to the property for the proposed residential development. This evening, I'll begin with a brief overview of the project, followed by a detailed discussion of the proposal and each associated application. I'll then walk through the environmental review process the project underwent and conclude with staff's recommendation. So to provide some background, in August of last year, the project was brought before the City Council for a screening, which is the initial step for general plan amendment and residential incentive overlay district process. The applicant submitted 2 requests. First was an amendment to the general plan land use element to apply the residential incentive overlay to the site. And the second was for City Council feedback on the proposed site plan, the architectural elements, and other design components in accordance with the overlay's development standards. The council was generally supportive and provided feedback to incorporate a community gathering space and to enhance the streetscape along Victoria Place, including activation of an existing landscape peninsula. Since then, the applicant has responded by providing a barbecue area, a children's play area, and a flexible use space. They've also improved the Victoria Place streetscape by providing landscaping, trees, and revitalizing the underutilized landscape peninsula. They also removed all the previously proposed palm trees. So the purpose of tonight's hearing is to receive a recommendation from the Planning Commission on the proposed project for City Council consideration, as they are the final decision-making body. While the Planning Commission typically acts as the final authority for tentative tract maps and master plans, this project includes a general plan amendment and a rezone, which requires City Council approval. Since all applications are being processed together, the Commission will provide a single comprehensive recommendation. So the project includes a general plan amendment, rezone, a master plan with deviations, and a tentative tract map. So specific to the general plan amendment, we want to clarify the proposal. We're not changing colors on the map. Instead, we aim to designate the subject property as being a component of the residential incentive overlay district. For example, the figure shows the project site marked with a red circle, but not yet identified as part of the residential incentive overlay district. On the right, it's correctly identified. This illustrates the kind of updates we're proposing, including modifications to graphics and text. So the project's acreage is accurately reflected in the general plan land use element tables. Additionally, the existing general commercial land use designation does not need to be changed, as the overlay is already compatible with this zoning classification, as specified in the general plan land use element. The residential incentive overlay was established by the City Council back in September of 2016. The overlay was initially applied to marginal sites along Harbor and Newport Boulevards, allowing these properties to be redeveloped and create new housing opportunities. So specific to this rezone, since the current zoning doesn't allow residential development, the applicant seeks this overlay on the subject site. This overlay helps to achieve the city's goals by adding additional standards on top of the existing zoning without changing the base zoning. So in this case, the overlay promotes a new residential development at a maximum density of 30 dwelling units per acre without changing the property's existing zoning. Given that the site is already within a Measure K area, applying this overlay appears to be a fitting approach. So now we're going to turn our attention to the master plan. So a master plan is required for all new development within the residential overlay. It establishes the overall development plan for the project. The project proposes a 40-unit residential common interest development with deviations to floor area ratio, common use open space, building height, side and rear setbacks, landscape parkways, parking, garage dimensions, and parking stalls between buildings. The project proposes a density of 22.6 dwelling units per acre, and the overlay permits a density of up to 30 dwelling units per acre. As you can see from this slide, the building is designed in a contemporary architectural style, proposed at a maximum height of 39 feet and 6 inches. Access to the site would be provided by two 25-foot wide drive aisles from Victoria Place. Open parking is integrated throughout, including between the units and at the rear of the site. In response to City Council's feedback, the applicant has incorporated a mix of on-site and off-site amenities to enhance the community. Within the development, residents will enjoy a centrally located barbecue and children's play area. There's also a flexible use communal space designed to host events, celebrations, and neighborhood mixers. Adjacent to the site, the applicant took the initiative to revitalize an underutilized landscape peninsula along Victoria Place. What was once overlooked has now been transformed into a passive recreation area. The detached units fronting Victoria Place are designed with large street-facing windows overseeing the landscape and bike rack area. The project includes contemporary design features, including modern elements such as large windows, a mixture of exterior building materials, which provides a variety of vertical and horizontal articulations. The units fronting the internal private streets carry over key materials and design elements from the street-facing elevations. These elevations feature two-car garages integrated into the design. We have landscaping positioned between the garages to break up the continuity of the building mass. And due to the inclusion of duplex units, there's a greater overall building mass, which is complemented by more of the pronounced gable-pitched roofs. The development features a few floor plans, one of the detached units and two for the duplexes. Each unit proposes a square footage of approximately 2,700 square feet. This slide highlights the detached unit. Each detached unit includes a ground floor workspace, an accessible restroom, two-car garage, and a private yard. The second floor offers a living room, kitchen, dining area, bathroom, and a covered balcony. The third floor, there are 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and a laundry area, and each unit is topped with a 230 square foot roof deck. The duplex units share a nearly identical layout and footprint with the detached units. They feature the same amount of bedrooms and bathrooms, as well as the ground level workspaces, balconies, and roof decks. While there may be minor differences in the window placement or interior configurations, the overall design remains consistent. Here are just a few renderings of the ground floor workspace and the second floor kitchen and living areas. To help visualize the barbecue and children's play area, this slide highlights a designed open space that blends the seating, tables, shaded areas, and landscaping, creating a gathering spot for families. This is the flexible use space. It's designed to serve as a large communal area for a variety of gatherings, including mixers, holiday events, and other community building activities. Parking is not permitted in this area due to fire code requirements. The off-site amenity along Victoria Place is a landscape peninsula that's been designed with landscaping, trees, seating areas, and a bioswale. This is approximately 2,800 square feet. So as part of the deviations, the applicant proposes deviations. As you may recall, since this project qualifies both as a residential common interest development and proposes to apply the residential incentive overlay district designation, it's subject to both set of standards. So the applicant is requesting deviations to the floor area ratio, the common use open space, building height, side and rear setbacks, the landscape parkway, parking, garage dimensions, and parking stalls between buildings. These are considered local code deviations and are not requested under state density bonus law provisions such as waivers or concessions. The 1.77 acre condo project meets the residential overlay's minimum lot size of 0.5 acres and provides a compliant 10-foot building separation. It also provides a 20-foot landscape setback along Victoria Place, which also satisfies both the overlay and common interest development standards. While the project meets most applicable development standards, the applicant is requesting deviations from the required 20-foot side and rear setbacks. As outlined in the deviation table, staff supports these requests because the site design continues to provide adequate physical separation between buildings and maintains the intent of the setback requirements. The project proposes a density of 22.6 dwelling units per acre. The proposed density is in compliance with the overlay, which allows up to 30 dwelling units per acre. Where it deviates is the common interest development maximum floor area of 0.75, where the project proposes a floor area ratio of 1.43. So although the proposed floor area ratio exceeds the standard, the 22.6 unit per acre complies with the overlay density. Staff supports the deviation because the residential intensity is more appropriately evaluated through density rather than through floor area ratio under the overlay development. And the project demonstrates compatibility with the surrounding development, adequate infrastructure capacity, and aligns with the city's housing goals. The project is also in compliance with the required open space. It's also in compliance with the common open space standard, and it's also in compliance with the private open space standard by providing a roof deck. What it deviates from is the residential overlay requirement of 50% of the total open space to be designated as common use open space. So staff supports this deviation because the project provides key amenities such as the children's play area, the barbecue space, and a flexible use open space. Additionally, the applicant is providing a passive recreation space along Victoria Place, which although it's not counted toward the formal total, it still enhances the project's overall recreational value and supports approval of the deviation. The maximum building height allowed in the overlay development is 3 stories, with rooftop terraces permitted and not counted as an additional story. The project proposes 3-story residential units, resulting in a total height of 39 feet 6 inches. As identified in the deviation table, the common interest development standards limit heights to 2 stories. So while the project proposes 3 stories, it's still consistent with the overlay development standards. Staff supports deviation because the proposed height is compatible with adjacent 3-story developments along Victoria Street and other building design incorporates steep roof lines and the articulation to reduce visual massing and maintains a neighborhood compatibility. The project also complies with the city's landscaping requirements. It proposes 87 trees, 82 are required. It also complies with the shrub count. Where it deviates from is the 10-foot wide landscape parkway along private driveways. The applicant proposes this deviation to preserve not only the unit count, but also maintain a functional drive aisle. So as noted then in the deviation table, staff supports this request because the project provides alternative landscaping such as tree wells, private yard landscaping, and common open space, which achieves the standard by enhancing the site aesthetics and pedestrian experience. As far as the city off-street parking requirements, the project requires 150 total parking spaces. The proposal provides 103 spaces. There's also a deviation from the required 20 feet wide by 20 feet long interior garage dimensions. The width is reduced to 6 by 6 inches. So instead of a 20-foot wide garage, we get 19 feet 6 inches. Staff supports this deviation as it still meets the intent of 2 vehicles parking and also vehicle operators getting in and out of the car. Again, and also there is another deviation to parking between buildings. The standard residential use is 8 feet 6 inches wide. In this project, there are several open parking spaces located between the buildings, so you would need an additional foot on each side, requiring a total stall width of 10 feet 6 inches. The applicant is requesting a deviation to allow a minimum parking stall width of 10 feet. Staff supports deviation because the proposed width still allow the practical use by most standard size vehicles and are not expected to compromise vehicle maneuverability or vehicle door operation. The proposed map would merge 3 existing parcels into a single to facilitate the residential condo units, enabling individual home ownership opportunities. Staff reviews the proposed tract map with the Costa Mesa Municipal Code and the Subdivision Map Act and determined that the map is in compliance with all applicable regulations. A draft mitigated negative declaration was prepared in accordance with CEQA. The public review period was held in April of this year, and the document includes mitigation measures for topics such as transportation, cultural resources, and hazards. The final MND package includes responses to public comments, minor corrections, and a monitoring program to ensure mitigation compliance. There were a few impacts identified for the proposed project. However, all identified environmental impacts would be less than significant with mitigation. Key issues include a potential disturbance of archaeological, paleontological, and tribal cultural resources, hazardous materials handling, and temporary circulation impacts during construction. Mitigation measures include monitoring, stop work protocols, and detailed construction and traffic management plans to minimize disruptions and protect resources. So according to the Costa Mesa Municipal Code, there are no specific findings required for a general plan amendment. So staff supports the proposed amendment as the 40 condo project would help improve the balance between rental and home ownership housing in the city. It aligns with the city's goal of expanding home ownership opportunities and promoting an overall community well-being. The project meets the rezone findings and is consistent with the zoning code. The project meets the residential incentives overlay deviation findings by providing a well-designed, high-quality residential development that is aligned with the general plan's goals It incorporates deviations that enhance the site's efficiency and ensures compatibility with surrounding uses. The project meets the tentative track map findings consistent with the general plan. And it also fits well without causing any environmental or utility issues. Staff recommends the Planning Commission recommend that the City Council adopt a mitigated negative declaration and mitigation monitoring and reporting program, and recommend that City Council approve the general plan amendment, rezone, master plan, and tentative track map. This concludes staff presentation. The applicant, staff, and the environmental consultant are available for any questions.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Mendez. Commissioners, questions of staff? Go ahead, Commissioner Andrade.
Yes. On page 28 of the staff report regarding trip generation, right? So it's estimated, obviously, it's going to increase the number of trips in that area. Just for some education and information for the group, what is the impact fee commonly invested in the city? Like, what are some examples of what that fee would support?
You're saying what those funds would be allocated
Utilized
for?
yes. Like some examples on.
I direct
Mr.
that to.
Mendez, we have our staff from the Transportation Services Division who can answer those questions. And upcoming is Mr. Seth Raman, our Public Works Director.
All right, Mr. Seth Rahman.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Andrade, the traffic impact fees are used for a variety of projects that are identified in our general plan circulation element, and also a variety of active transportation improvements based on our recent, or it's been a practice over the last few years.
So active transportation, greater walkability, bike lanes, which I saw was outlined here in the project.
So the bike lanes that are part of the project are the responsibility of the project itself. But if there are other projects that are identified in our active transportation plan or circulation element, those are part of the fee program.
Awesome. And is there a estimate on what we would foresee the fee would be for a project this size?
I don't have the actual number, but maybe it's in the conditions.
Yeah, Commissioner Andrade, there is a condition of approval that talks about the total impact fee. Oh, here we go. It's $20,315.75. This is condition number 28 on page 32.
Thank you so much.
Chair, if I could add on to that answer for Commissioner Andrade. The condition has a qualifier that's just an estimate based on the preliminary project submittal. And so what'll happen is once the project gets closer to the issuance of building permits, that's when the actual fee will be calculated. And so I wanted to make sure that the expectation that number that's in the condition, it's for guidance only at this point, and it'll be more exact when the project comes closer to permits. Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect. Also, I guess, Mr. Setharaman, along transportation. So I live in this area, so I'm very familiar with the Victoria exit out of the 55. I go right down Victoria to get on the 55 to get head to work, and just get on the freeway. So during peak hours, end of the workday, start of the workday, it's heavy traffic. So do you foresee, because I wasn't clear in the package, do you foresee property owners exiting out of Victoria Place? Are they going to be able to during peak hours, make a left-hand turn into Victoria Street towards Newport Boulevard? Because again, just driving by that area, I don't often see many cars. Obviously, right now, these businesses, I guess, don't necessarily pull, but I can I can see with 40 units, some folks may be exiting the building around peak hours. Any thoughts around that?
So again, it depends on the traffic patterns. Yeah, if there are, I think there is opportunity to make even a left turn out of the site onto Victoria Place, and then they can turn right onto southbound Newport Frontage Road. I think that's another option. But otherwise, I mean, if that left turn is an issue, then there are other ways for people to get around.
Okay.
They have to go a little bit
Maybe
around.
just go the roundabout. And I guess along those lines, and just considering that that would create just a one-way exit out of the structure, is there any opportunities to creating an alternative exit through I don't know, we have our wonderful neighbors at Nectar. I don't know, since it abuts that property, is there any other ways that we can create added exits for the property?
At this point, this project we cannot assume that they will negotiate another exit onto Newport Boulevard. So they have to function with the exits they have right now.
This existing one. Okay, so maybe that's something for the applicant to see if any thoughts about the level of traffic. Other than that, along the efforts on landscaping, and I don't know if this is more for the applicant or the city, so I see that it meets the tree count expectations with some deviations on the size of the trees or that are going to be set up. Is there any opportunities, and I don't know if this maybe goes along the city's sustainability plans on just adding, they're doing a lovely greenery in the front. It looked like a couple of the open spaces had some tree shrubs. Is there any opportunity to kind of add more green space, like, I don't know, recommendations along the rooftops? There's a lot of great projects that now, to maintain the city cool as much as possible. Victoria Street is a nicely tree-lined corridor, so it'd be a great way to kind of maybe build upon that, since we're now gonna add this many units onto this area. Is that ever a recommendation along the city's maybe sustainability goals and creating more creative ways to add green space? Because I understand in your presentation that, right, we needed to limit the number of trees because we didn't want to take away parking spaces and the unit sizes. So is there any thoughts around that?
Yeah, so it meets the tree count, it meets the shrub count. What it's deviating in terms of landscaping is a landscape parkway, which theoretically would provide more trees. I'm not aware of any recent projects where we've required an applicant or if an applicant has proposed some sort of rooftop landscaping. But I mean, the applicant's here if they're open to providing something along those lines.
Okay, great, awesome. That's all I have for now.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Dixon.
Yeah, thanks so much. So the common open space, it's the kind of in the back, right? The 20-foot wide or 25-foot wide area.
Yeah, so it's two. It's the flexible use space kind of towards the rear of the property.
Right.
And then we have the barbecue
Right.
/ child play area.
So the flexible use space toward the back of the property, is that serving a dual purpose of fire department access and turnaround?
Correct.
Okay. And so there's not, I'm not super fond of pavers as open space. So that's just my issue there. So we can talk about that with the developer, but I just want to ask that question. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Martinez? Try it again. Not working. Okay. Any other questions? Commissioner Rojas?
I have a quick question. It's not related to the design or whatnot. I was just looking at some of the, at the area there online, and some of the businesses have been there for quite a while. I was just curious what's going on with those guys. Somebody who's been there for 40 years, et cetera, et cetera. What are we doing with those guys?
You're talking about the businesses on the existing site?
Yes.
From my understanding with the applicant, those leases will eventually be dissolved with this project. I'd probably be a better question to the applicant to see what
Okay.
he's planning.
I'm just curious. I get it. We got to vote on this, but I just wondering about the background of that.
They're well aware of the project that's happening.
Fair enough. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions of commissioners? I'll buy Commissioner Martinez a little bit of time. Oh, thank you, Ron.
Okay. Well, it's working. Thank you. Let me get situated. Yeah, basic question. Because I think I remember. How many general plan amendments can we do in a year?
I think it's 4 last time I recall. Yeah.
4. Okay. Are we doing like this one and the next one if approved as one together, or would this count for 2 if both would be approved?
You're saying that if a future developer,
We have 2 items on our agenda tonight that are general plan amendments.
Okay.
So does that count for 2 of our 4, or would they go?
yes, I think if they both get approved by the city council, that would count.
That would count for 2. Okay. Just wanted to know. Okay. How would someone who is walking access one of the homes? I think this is also one of Caltrans's comments.
So if you're driving into the site, you park into one of the parking spaces. You can either park in the garage if you live there, and you can access it through the garage. The second option is if you park in between the units, there's a side entrance. In terms of pedestrian, if you're walking along Victoria Place, there's actually no current sidewalks along Victoria Place, so this project would actually provide this sidewalk in front of this development. So there'd be 2 walkways entering on either side of the driveways. And then similarly to what I just said, they can click the remote to enter through the garage or through the side of the building.
Okay. And once you're on the property, having access to it as a pedestrian, is there a walkway?
The only walkway would be in the barbecue/children's play area.
Okay. So the drive aisles are the pedestrian access. It's shared between vehicles and.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. This zone, there's only 4 other sites that has this zone. So first, I want to ask why pick this zone if there's only 4 other sites that have it?
No, that's a great question, Commissioner Martinez. So if we were to do a traditional rezone with the other zoning, other zoning that we have in the city, we'd be limited in the density, which is 20 units per acre. We'd also be limited in the height requirement, as most of our residential zones are limited to 2 stories. And then another factor is if we were to deviate from any other development standards, those zones would require a variance, and you would have to meet those variance findings, which this project, if we were to go the traditional rezoning route, most likely wouldn't be met.
Okay. How about the other sites that have this zone? Do they also have I don't know. I don't know how many deviations this has, but do they also require like 10 different deviations?
So the other ones that were developed, or the other ones that have the overlay,
Yeah.
they were never developed through the overlay standards. So for example, the luxury apartments,
Yeah.
that was rezoned through a PDR HD. That went through its own separate process, but at the same time, the council was making adjustments to these overlays. Then we have another site that was, I believe, a Motel 6 that got reconverted to smaller units. They didn't use the residential incentive overlay, they just went through a building plan check process to accommodate that. So to my knowledge, no developer has used the residential incentive overlay as of yet.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Is who? So no one's used this. This is the first time someone's going through this.
Correct. So just a little bit of background. General plan gets approved by the council in 2016. In 2018, staff decides that they want to eliminate all of the residential incentive sites. Planning Commission goes with staff's recommendation, but City Council, when it gets to City Council, they found value of not eliminating all of them. They wanted to keep four overlays, and those overlays are the ones that are existing now.
Okay. Very peculiar. Okay. Just going to move on from that. This site requires an ALUC review. Do you have any initial indications from them on what is it going to be their standard? Don't build anything, don't rezone anything anywhere?
I mean, it's more of a procedural thing with the Airport Land Use Commission. We're below the heights, so I don't see an issue for this project.
Okay. I'll go to Caltrans's comments. The general question is, how were Caltrans's comments addressed? And I already asked about the pedestrian walkways to each unit, pedestrian access to each unit. So how about the intersections of Victoria Place and Victoria Street and Newport Boulevard, and any crosswalk enhancements?
Yeah, let me take a look at the mitigation measure. I think I'd like to bring up our consultant, Michael Baker, to see if they can address this issue.
Sorry, I have a lot of stuff. Hello, I'm Kristen Bogue. I'm with Michael Baker International, and I'm assisting city staff through the CEQA process and the MND. What of Caltrans comment letter particularly did you want to inquire?
I think the walkways we've talked about already. So I'll first start with number 2, which is enhancing the crosswalks at Victoria Place and Newport Boulevard and Victoria Place and Victoria Street.
So CEQA, our baseline is the existing condition, and in this particular case, the project isn't really substantially increasing the population, and we can only require mitigation that's consistent with the impact at hand. So there's not really enough people crossing at one time to trigger any kind of improvements other than the city's standards that's there today.
Okay. Okay. How about Caltrans comment number 6? Encourage the use of transit among future residents, visitors, and workers. Is that addressed?
Again, and it's similarly, we have to look at the existing condition and how much they're actually contributing. There's not a huge population increase with this particular project. And we did do the utilities and public services analysis and did come to the conclusion that the city's existing system can handle the nominal increase in population that would use it.
Okay. Okay. So, just for myself, I suppose, these comments and these possible mitigation measures, they're just purely for environmental purposes and not out of the rest of the planning. It's just environmental effects.
For CEQA, I have to stick to the CEQA topics at hand and our thresholds of significance. So when I get a comment letter, I answer to the extent of the CEQA grounds. I understand that the city has their general plan goals and policies and other things, and we do look to see that we're consistent, or should I say, we're not conflicting with the policies that the city has, which we did. But I do have to stick to the grounds of CEQA, and I do understand that there's other goals and objectives that we might have regarding sustainability and transit. But this project doesn't seem to conflict with what the city has today.
Okay. That makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I'll be here if you have any other questions.
Thank you. I think those are actually all of my questions. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, commissioners? Commissioner Andrade.
So just, again, pointing to what we heard from Mr. Sethuraman and Commissioner Martinez now. I understand that that might not be within the requirements for CEQA, but my concern here is just pure public safety. There are no crosswalks here. The only crosswalk that this project would have, if you're a pedestrian or anybody just walking around the area, is right on Victoria Street and the intersection of Victoria and Newport Boulevard. Even that little turn into Victoria Place, that's not even a solid crosswalk. It's just a marked lines. As a pedestrian myself walking through that street, you're at the mercy of whatever car that's turning over. And again, at a high traffic point, it's heavily traffic. It's truly not safe. So for my concerns for the city is just on public safety, and I don't know again if this lasts in transportation, public works, where did this land? But approving a project this size, we should really pay attention to kind of some of the accident-prone locations. Like I know that if you cross Newport Boulevard over the 55 to try to get on the freeway, that corner right there of Victoria and Newport Boulevard on the other side, on the east side of Costa Mesa, I don't know how many times that corner has been repaired over and over because cars just slam right into it. So there's a clear public safety concern that I would have here. So I understand that, again, it doesn't fall within CEQA, but just basic public safety. We should, at the very least, if we're supporting this project, consider greater crosswalks. Like, is there an opportunity to put a crosswalk right at the edge of Victoria Place for folks that are crossing along? That, again, intersection between Victoria Place and Newport Boulevard, that should be maybe I don't know if it's a hawk signal or what kind of added safety for that along that intersection for folks to walk through. Yeah, I mean, and again, because the next crosswalk from Victoria and Newport, I don't even know how many miles down past. I don't think there is any, actually, now that I'm trying to visually place it. My Google Maps is not giving me a really solid picture right now, but I don't think there is any other crosswalk along Victoria, right? Aside from Newport, and then the next one is Harbor Boulevard.
Mr. Chair, if I can answer that question.
Yes, go ahead.
So one thing that can be done is maybe the project can implement a crosswalk at basically crossing Victoria Place on Victoria, which is just a striping modification. Along Newport, the city has a project that's coming down the road, and the city can implement the crosswalk at that location along Newport at Victoria Place. And I had to check but most likely our project, when we implement it, we do high visibility crosswalk. So we'll do that at Victoria and 22nd Street. So the city has a project coming down the road.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and maybe, I understand, maybe not necessary, since we already have a crosswalk, excuse me, on Newport Boulevard and Victoria Street, maybe it doesn't have to be right at the edge of Victoria Place, but maybe just a few blocks down so they're not so back to back. I can see how that could be slow down just movement down the street. But yeah, we really need a added crosswalk down that strip. A lot of folks just go high velocity, right? Everyone's eager to trying to catch that light to get on the freeway. So just again, the public safety concern here. Thank you.
All right. Any other? Vice Chair Zick?
Just one. Mr. Mendez, I might have more questions for you after public comment, but I have a question right now. If I look at the bottom of page 3 in the staff report, the very last item, you indicate that with the residential incentive overlay district, the maximum is 3 stories. And that's what the code is, and that's what's proposed. If I look at the top of the next page, page 4, you talk about the maximum building height, and what's allowed is 2-story at 27 feet. And what's proposed is 3-story at 39 feet. I don't understand how to reconcile those two data points.
Okay, so the first column is the residential incentive overlay, which allows 3 stories, and we're proposing 39. So the second column is the residential common interest development standard. That's a 2-story building height limit. So the proposed never changes. It's the requirement between the overlay development standard and the common interest development standard. So what we're deviating from is the common interest development height standard.
So explain the bottom on page 3, where 3-story is allowed.
Correct. So 3 stories is allowed in the overlay.
But on the next page, it's not.
It's not, because it's a different standard coming from the common interest development standard.
Okay. I'll take that for now.
I don't know.
I'll take that for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, just a couple questions, Mr. Mendez. And I'm going to pick up on what Commissioner Martinez first started asking about. And you may recall in August when we had the council screening, I made similar comments about the, what did you say, David? Peculiar entitlement? I think I called it unusual. And that it's intending to use an overlay as opposed to straight rezoning. Putting aside some policy questions, I'm curious if this had pursued a planned development entitlement, so PDR HD, which I think was what was originally requested by the applicant. That's a 20 dwelling units to the acre standard maximum?
That's correct.
Okay, and here ultimately they end up with 22.6?
Correct.
Okay, and the real difference, on the PDR HD, could they go to 3 stories or do they need the overlay for that?
They would still be limited to 2 stories.
Okay. All right, I think I'm going to wait till the applicant is available. Any other questions? Go ahead, Commissioner Dixon.
Quick question regarding the downstairs office space. 425 square feet is what it's saying that they're allowing for that. But I didn't see, and maybe I just missed it, what's the configuration of the bathroom down there? Because I know there's a half bath in the middle floor, but on the bottom floor, what's the configuration of that bathroom?
Yeah, whether it's like a powder room or a full bathroom. I'll let the applicant come up because I noticed that as well.
Okay,
Good eye.
thanks. Oh, and really quickly, are you familiar with the Harmony Lane development that's just down Victoria a little bit? You know, it's the one that's on the corner of, oh my gosh, drawing a complete blank. But it was one that was in a three-story,
A little.
same side of the street, down near the end. There's some similarities with the landscaping and the parkways and the pedestrian paths and et cetera.
Right.
It's also 3 stories. I don't recall off the top of my head what that planning mechanism was. Was it a PDR? Was it a master plan? Was it an overlay zone? Because it seems like a similar sort of characteristics of development.
Yeah, I don't have the background
Okay,
details.
I was trying to
just-
look it up, but
yeah.
I can't figure it out, so. On my phone. Do you know? Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, last questions, Commissioner Martinez.
Yeah, just to try and clear this up, and also kind of for me. Okay, could you just go through again? What is the overlay district, RIOD, and what is RCID? Very similar looking acronyms.
Right.
Tell us what each of them is.
So, high level, the residential incentive overlay is an overlay that also acts as zoning, which has its own development standards. The residential common interest development occurs when it's a condo development. So when we're talking about airspace units, condo, your common use open space. So because this is a condo project, it falls within the residential common interest development standards as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to open the public hearing and ask the applicant if they'd like to come to the podium, if you have a presentation, or if you want to respond to some questions from staff or commissioners. Not obligated, but if you'd like to, go ahead. And can I ask you first, just state your name for the record, and my first question is if you've read the conditions of approval and if you agree to them.
Yeah, good evening, Chair and members of the Commission. I'm Tony Wida. I am the managing partner of WMC on the project before you this evening. And thanks, Victor. He did a good job of laying out all the details, so I won't go through a lot of those. I'll answer some of your questions, or I brought my architect and engineer that can answer anything that you might need to. We have reviewed all the conditions of approval and mitigating measures, and we accept them as presented, subject to any revisions based on your feedback this evening. Like I said, I'd go through a lot of the details Victor's already covered, but we feel that Costa Mesa's need for this type of housing is pretty clear. It offers a thoughtful and well-designed response to that need. The demand for this housing is pretty strong. We believe Victoria Place delivers that value and viability as the other recently approved projects within the city, which within the last year. We feel it's ideally located for key amenities, excellent access to retail, John Wayne, Back Bay, Harbor, shopping in all major freeways, as the commissioners pointed out. And we believe it attracts the new generation of home buyers for this type of development. In response to the feedback from the council on the last hearing we have made significant improvements to our original design. It didn't have a lot of these amenities. We focused on the open space, all the landscaping, circulation, and connectivity. We added that central gathering area with the children's playground, the flexible use open space, which is kind of, brought that up in the very beginning. And as far as paving, it's not going to be probably pavers. It will probably be a concrete type service, sustainable for, fire engines or whatever. It'll meet code. The pavers are more at the entrance, and they enhance some of the distinctions in the alleyways right there. So they're not going to be back there with that spaces. It is kind of difficult to have pavers in that kind of a situation to begin with. We did enhance the street frontage per council with a lot of shade trees, the walkable paths, the drought-tolerant landscaping, and designed for long-term sustainability in mind. So drought-resistant type tolerant plant materials. As shown in all the documents in Victor's presentation, the homes are designed for today's lifestyles. 3 stories with the rooftop decks, which are large rooftop decks, open living spaces, 2-car garages, and the ground floor flex space, which we consider to be like home office use, which is really what a lot of people are looking for today. As far as the answer to the bathroom, it is designed with a location for the bathroom. It's not in the middle, it's off to the side. I believe it's under the stairway, and we can make that either a half bath or full bath, but I think at this point we probably just make it a half bath just for use if you're down in your office, not like with a full, shower or anything like that. The community does include all the guest parking. We put the bike racks in. It's pedestrian friendly. It's gated and encourages both safety and the neighborhood connection, so it's their space, it's part of their areas. We feel with support from the staff and the consultant team, we believe it aligns with Costa Mesa's goals for smart, high-quality infill development. I want to again thank staff and their guidance for support throughout this entire process. Like I said, I am joined tonight by my architect and Richard Finkel, Bundy Finkel, Fred Cornwell. He's principal at CA Engineering. They're both experienced in Costa Mesa and the surrounding communities. They understand the city standards, processes, and expectations, and they share our commitment to a thoughtful, high-quality design. Thank you again for your time, your consideration this evening, and we're here to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Weeda. Commissioners, any questions of the applicant? Commissioner Martinez.
Just a quick one. For pedestrian access, just said it's gated. I'm assuming that means the entire driveway is gated. If someone walks to this site, how does that work? How do they get in?
Well, if it's a resident, there will be a man gate at both entrances, and they'll have their own code. And so that code would go back to be controlled by the HOA, and they would know who came in and who came out. It goes to a general HOA. I don't know if you're familiar with HOAs. They all have a generalized, HOA controller who they would recognize, and you could even go on your own apps and everything nowadays and see who enters and who doesn't exits. So when a code gets entered and goes through that gate, anybody would be notified if it's their code for that unit.
Okay. I think what I'm trying to get at is there a pedestrian access gate? Does someone have to?
That's what I call a man gate. It's a pedestrian gate.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that.
So you don't have to open up the full.
No, sir.
The full vehicle.
It will be an actual pedestrian gate.
Gotcha.
For each entrance. So
yes.
When the cars enter, there'll be the gate for the cars, but when a pedestrian enters, they'll have their own gate.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Vice Chair Zick.
Thank you. I expected more questions. I'm pleased to see a forced ownership development, but I'm going to ask you some tough questions. I just want to let you know that I already like the idea of an ownership project. It's a gated development. Is there something about this location that you think is unsafe and warrants gates?
No, I love gated communities. I think that they're just a necessity today in any city. I don't care if you're from Newport to Dana Point. A lot of these type of communities are gated. And
Why?
I think for for the neighbors to feel, not necessarily safe, just to have their own private space where they're not, public cannot just enter and drive through a constant flow of traffic. And so they know that their children are playing out front. They're not worried about, if they'll for such a small development, that everybody should know most of the people. So I believe that when the gates are shut, I think that'll be ample space for a lot of children to play in. And obviously, if they're watched, I don't think the parents can let them run wild in there. But I think that that's a lot of why we even did the gates.
Okay. With this overlay zone, which allows 30 units per acre, and you're only putting, which could have a maximum of 53, you're only putting 40 units in the development. And what I don't understand is why you still don't have enough open space to meet the common open space requirement. What would it have taken in your design to meet the common open space requirement that we have?
That could be a question for Victor or possibly my architect, but I believe we could go more units, but it is a small space. So just to fit in what we've done and to give it the open space feel and the parking and meet all those requirements, I know we fall a little bit short, but I think we have more than what the majority of these type of developments have throughout the community, the ones that are existing. And I think even the ones that have been proposed and that have been already approved have about either the same or a little bit more.
So would that be your same explanation for why the setbacks don't meet the requirements also?
On the setbacks, I believe that's a Richard question. He can go over that that's our architect. Richard, if you want to come up. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Good evening, Richard Finkel, Bundy Finkel Architects. I know that, Tony, when we talked about the development of the project from the outset, it was to give people that wanted the feeling of having a single-family home, a nice place where you could raise a family, not feel like you're in what a lot of people call single-family homes or duplexes, a condo, feel very much more like an apartment. We wanted something that was much more like you had a home. One thing I'm very proud of with this design and development under Tony's guidance are the yards. We have wraparound yards, backyard, side yard, not a little postage stamp or not the kind of yard where you walk through the front yard to get to the front door. We literally have a yard where you can have a barbecue, tables back there. We have very large balconies. We have large roof decks.
Could I rephrase my question?
Well, sure.
Okay.
Do what you want.
I mean, because I understand all those attributes that you have for the project. In order to meet the side setback requirement in our code, what would you have had to have done differently in your design?
Just getting to that point. Part of what we wanted to do is provide full garages, not covered parking spaces, not more of that apartment feeling. So we have 2-car garages. We have, like I said, an abundance of yard and other spaces. Had we wanted to include more ground level common area uses, we would have ended up with stacked flats. We would have ended up with units and then units above those to create more open space on the bottom. That's the way that we would create open space, is rather than having these homes side by side, is you start to stack them. That creates more open space on there. The desire of the ownership, certainly the desire of the city, was to try and create more of a home feeling. And in order to do that, having ground level garages, 2-car garages, when you put them end to end, or I'm sorry, side to side on this site, that's why you ended up with the geometry of having to reduce the setbacks a little bit and having less open space in consideration of having more private space. We have such an abundance of each unit having backyards, balconies, roof decks, and we still were able to get barbecue areas, play areas, the flex space. Tony and doing working with the city to provide that landscape peninsula on the front. I think it was a good compromise to be able to create more of that home feeling with a lot of the open space also a bit of a trade-off for having private outdoor space.
So if you'd had setbacks that met the requirement, you wouldn't have been able to accomplish this
We
home
would
feeling?
not. We would not. Literally, the garage widths drove the development, which is the other reason why we went from 20 foot to 19 foot 6.
And that is my next question for you.
Yes, sir.
I park both my vehicles in my garage. I have a full-size garage. I know how tight it is to get out of each of those vehicles. I don't understand how reducing the width by 6 inches is going to be practical.
Interesting point, because I have a garage. I live in a development close to the one I designed for Tony. And one of the things I did when I was looking at how to fit this is I went to my own garage, measured the wall to wall. And I've got 2-car garages, I've got table saws, bikes, all the things that you have as an active family, and I have a 19-foot 6 garage. So I did go to Victor at one point, and Bill before Victor, and said, we make that work. That is not an uncommon dimension. We design a lot of residential projects in 19-foot 6 to 21-foot 6 is that sweet spot for garages. Is that extra 6 inches going to make or break it if you're trying to get in and out of a car, or you want to have those bikes that we all have? No. Does it make it a little tighter? Yes, by 6 inches, or 3 inches per car bay. So to answer your comment, in order to make it fit, literally starting at the street, having the required front setback, going all the way back to the rear property line, the 19-foot 6 was necessary.
What would you have had to do with your design? How would you have had to change your design to have garages that were 20 feet wide to meet
Would
the
have
code?
lost you're asking me to remember, I think their longest row is 8 homes in a row, 8 garages. If each one got 6 inches wider, you'd have lost 4 more feet in the setback. The city did not like to lose the front setback because city council very much liked the landscaping, the feeling that the buildings are set back, and the fire department and traffic department required us to have a throat. You had to be able to get a vehicle completely off the street while you're waiting for the gate to open, and that 20-foot setback is necessary.
So when you say it encroaches further on the setback, narrowing the buildings, reducing the number of units, that's not an option?
Well, you could always reduce the number of units. You could
Well, if you're trying to make it fit to code, was that something that you would have looked at or considered?
Yes. However, the city came to us and said, you can get 30 development units per acre on this project. You're only getting what we are getting. Can't you add more units? So the city was encouraging us to put more units on the property, to go up to the 30 units per acre. And our answer was, we literally don't have the room. You physically don't have the room to go end to end, garage to garage. That was another reason why, instead of having the 10-foot 4 between the buildings for the parking spaces between the buildings, it went to 10. If they had held to that 10-foot, I think Victor mentioned 10.6, I think it was 10.4, your code. If we then had to add the additional 4 inches per parking space between building, we would have lost an additional 2 feet or 1 foot.
So you did all this not so much because it met your aesthetic for excellence in design, but you did all this to meet the request of a city that asked you to put more units into the site. Is that what you're telling me?
I am, and I would say it's in cooperation with the city. They were very helpful in saying, can you do this, can you do that? And we'd come back and go, yes, no, maybe.
And so with regard to parking, is that sort of the similar story there where the code requires 20 guest spots and you're only providing 5? To provide more would have been less units and counter to what the city was asking you to do on the site?
Very much so.
Okay, no more questions.
All right. Any other questions, commissioners? Commissioner Dixon.
Yeah, and just a quick question regarding the figures that the site plan I was provided does not have explanations for just in this staff report, there's not an explanation for the little boxes of what things are. So I'm seeing as if you pull in and you want to be a guest and you want to park in a guest spaces, there are 3 spaces adjacent to the play area on the right, looking down at it. And I see a handicap space and then 1 space on the left. And so would the other guest parking space be just one of those ones between the houses, or what am I missing?
Yeah, if you look at the conditions of approval there, it's actually a condition that says that all the spaces between are not assigned. They are unassigned, so they're all guest spaces.
Right.
So the ADA parking stall is on the top left.
Right.
And then, so there's 2 on the left side and 3 on the right side.
Okay. So they're kind of the ADA is one of the guest bars. Okay, got it. Thank you very much.
While I'm up here, would it be possible to answer a comment from Commissioner Andretti that she made about wanting to encourage greenery, planting, rooftop? I think that is the way people are handling those rooftops now. They just don't throw furniture up there. They will have potted plants. We are designing the roofs to handle an above standard load. It's not just furniture and people. They will be designed to handle potted plants with water in them, which makes them obviously heavy. We have the yards where we're absolutely certain people will be planting not huge canopy trees, but the edges of the property in rear will have trees that soften those edges as well. We're also hoping that the office spaces down below will reduce trip counts. You mentioned the not being able to get in and out. My wife is a writer, works at home, and my hope is with the office downstairs, there'll be plenty of people that rather than getting in their car and adding to the traffic, will just go downstairs with a cup of coffee and that's where they're going to work from.
If I can maybe piggyback off of that, so you have no concerns with just that one exit coming out of Victoria Place and just the volume of traffic that area commonly has at peak times?
Well, that's out of my area of expertise. We had a traffic engineer do a study. We had the city's engineer vet the study, and everything ended up thumbs up. We have 2 exits, well separated out of the development. So even within the development, if you find that one of the 2 exits in the morning tends to get more backed up than the other, you can go to the other one. Once you're on Victoria Place, you can go left, you can go right. I don't think it's any less restrictive than the businesses have there now. And I don't know how those trips counts laid out, but again, our engineer and the city's engineer seem to feel comfortable with the numbers.
Yeah. And maybe this is a question, I don't know if it's for the architect or for the developer, just following up on my questions about just public safety along the crosswalks on Victoria Place, Newport Boulevard. I know that you talked about, making this development pedestrian friendly, but how can we make it pedestrian friendly and safe? Right, especially I know that there's that part in just that bike lane that's there, but it's not a truly protected bike lane. It's just a line that indicates a bike may come here, but with cars flashing through, very few bikes will venture.
You may want to defer that question to the city engineering or planning because they did not extend our purview, our area of study beyond just in front of our development and the bike lane and the little landscaped area. I think there was an understanding that kind of holistically, that whole corner along Newport Boulevard, how it kind of radiates out from that point needs a lot of work beyond just stripes on a sidewalk. Handicap ramps where those sidewalks extend to around the Jiffy Lube. We were appreciative that the city said this was larger than your one development would trigger. We need to look at more than, and again, you have the engineer here. We need to look at more than just painting stripes on the ground, and that would be more than Mr. Weeda, I think, would be taking on at this point. Plus, you'd want to hire an engineer to do a complete traffic and circulation study to figure out what would be best for that. And that wasn't part of our task.
Right. Not part of your task, but clearly one of your concerns. right, as part of this
Well,
project?
I think as any architect, our first mandate is to protect the health, safety, and welfare of people. But there is an argument to be made that how much of that is the city needing to look at that entire area as opposed to, well, we'll fix a sidewalk here and a ramp over there. And there were discussions about it, but, and the city also mentioned that was an area of concern, but they didn't say they were going to make it our burden to bear. Is that your understanding?
Similar to that.
Yeah, okay.
A
A
collaborative
lot of
effort,
people
I'm
I'm
sure.
speaking, a lot of people I'm speaking for here, I don't want to.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Okay, I have one last design question. I think you just mentioned that the residents could use either driveway if they needed to exit. So does that mean that the flex space is accessible for cars?
No, absolutely, because the fire department and trash trucks can't be locked in. They have to be, they can't go in and then back out. So those entities said, well, you have to have a transecting aisle so a fire truck and trash truck can go in and not have to turn around and back out. So that is serving as a way to allow emergency vehicles and trash to make that turn. The city, in response to our saying, well, what if this was an area that if they wanted to have a community barbecue or a Halloween, bring your kids out and show your outfits, they said you can use it for that, but there can be nothing permanent in that area that can't be quickly pulled out of the way if an emergency vehicle needed to make it through there. So I think the city was very excited about that idea of creating a sense of community, a gathering space, potlucks, barbecue areas, Christmas pageants, whatever you wanted to do in that area, but nothing permanent. No trees, no planting, no cars parked there.
Okay. One last question from Commissioner Dixon.
Just, you brought it up on that space, so do you have plans to have any sort of, that protects that space? Like in public spaces, all over cities, they'll have, ballers that you
We
can
talked
remove
about
easy.
possibly doing removable ballers if they have a situation like that, but we'd have to probably get that accepted through OC, or this is Costa Mesa Fire.
I don't, again, living in a very similar community where we do this, when you're having that event,
It's obvious.
It's like, the only people that are inside the gates are the people that live there, and no one is going to try and drive a car through the people. They'll just know when you pull out of your garage, you're going this way and not that way.
All right, thank you.
All right.
I will address Commissioner Rojas' concerns on the tenants. They've been there longer than 40 years. Some of them have been there over 58. I think Allied's been there over 58. But for the longest time, and when we purchased the property, acquired the property, there were no leases in place. And there hasn't been for well over 10, 15, 20 years. Matter of fact, I don't even think they had an active lease on any property. It was just a friendly arrangement between the tenants. As a matter of fact, Allied, we didn't even change their lease rate, so we kept them there because they've always had intentions of going online. It's kind of gotten to that, get away from the brick and mortar, because they utilize, I would say, half of that space. That's half of Allied's. We have warehouses in the back. They don't even go in. They're just full of just a lot of old fixtures and stuff. The one area, the residential property is that's never really been, it's always been leased by a plumber who uses the rear building on one of the sites as a storage facility. So he's been month to month and he doesn't really care one or the other. The boat storage, the same. I think the original tenant, I think he passed away, and so I believe it's the wife that controls it, and she's kind of done with it. So she's hanging on just because a lot of people store their old stuff there, but they're pretty much ready to go too. The Battery Mart definitely is going to relocate in Costa Mesa, loves the area, but he's on month to month too. So yes, sir, that's the take.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I did see some of the reviews. I did see some of the loyal customers there that were bringing it up, which is, I mean, I understand it. This is progress. We're going to have to move forward, but it's good to know that the people that have been there for a while have been considered and taken care of.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Mr. Weeda, I'll give you some time at the end of public comment.
Excuse me, I had a quick question
Commissioner Kleepak.
about the gates. Where exactly is the pedestrian gate? Because I'm not seeing it on the rendering here. Is it?
know if you can pull up a site plan, Victor. If you're looking, let's say you're on the west side gate. Yeah, can you zoom in on the left, on the west side gate? Okay, right where your arrow is, right there. That is a pedestrian gate. So the gate itself is 4 feet in front of the face of the building. The sliding gate is 4 feet in front of the face of the building. And between that sliding gate for vehicles and the face of the building, perpendicular to the face of the building, is a pedestrian gate.
Okay.
You can point to the sidewalk right where you're pointing to. Yeah, you follow the sidewalk up, you go left and through the gate.
I see.
Very good.
Thank you. And so the car gates, they slide open?
They slide.
In that swing. Did you give any consideration to just since there looks like there's only really maybe space for one car to wait for the gate, any thought about the time that might be added that could, because it's already a very trafficked area, and so if people are backing up waiting for the gate to open, any thoughts about how that might exacerbate traffic issues?
Operational questions like that, I don't usually dictate to the owner, and because this will have CCNRs and an HOA that controls it, I imagine the HOA will be very sensitive to that, and they will take whatever steps they need to control it. As the architect, we will put in a gate that has an operator where the timings can be adjusted. It won't be a static, one setting fits all. It'll be able to be dialed in.
And these do meet a fire, there's a fire code that they have to meet that for the opening and closing of that too, so for access. Or OCFA, I'm more familiar with in Costa Mesa, but yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
I'll now open for public comments. If you'd like to speak on this item, please come to either podium. If you're on the Zoom, please use the raise hand option. And if you're on phone and like to speak, please press *9. Mr. Humphrey.
Good evening again, Jay Humphrey, Costa Mesa resident. First, I want to say I'm fully in support of ownership housing. We need to reduce that ratio between homeownership and between owner-occupied and rental property. And so consequently, I do support that. But having said that, we also need to make sure that what we're doing is not imposing negative impacts on the rest of our community for the projects we do. I mean, that's just simple that I look at. In this project, there's a lot of nice things, a lot of things that work, a lot of things that are great if you're a family, like a 3-bedroom with an office with a bathroom. Let's be honest, that's really 4 bedrooms, because without the bathroom in the basement, you couldn't make that really livable. They'd have to go up and downstairs, et cetera, to use a bathroom, like the live-work units that we currently have that do not allow bathrooms on the bottom floor to make sure it stays a work unit for most likely. And it becomes difficult to rent out as a separate room because it doesn't have a bathroom. So we're looking at really 4 bedrooms. And we have to look at what that generates as far as cars are concerned, because 4 bedrooms is a pretty large number. And I love all the different studies that show that, oh, we can use less than the standard because we have less in that. Those comments are constant with all the different processes. But here's one more time when an inadequate standard is going to rely on street parking, which the applicant and staff have both said anything that needs to be happening will happen back out on the street. So we're allowing street parking to become the overflow process. And the saving grace to that is once all that's filled up, they don't have easily walk from neighborhoods to move the rest of the cars and boats and what have you that will be on those properties. And all that open parking, once a guy parks in that, let's say he parks his boat in there, that ain't gonna empty until he pulls his boat out to go somewhere. So the reality is that a lot of parking is going to be not permanent, but you know what I mean, long-term and not used daily, and the daily parking will be changed in other ways. So lastly, and it's really a point, roof decks at really a fourth floor because they put umbrellas on them, and umbrellas push that height even higher. So keep in mind that when you're approving it visually, you're approving however tall the umbrella is on that roof deck. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in chambers? Anna, do we have anybody on Zoom or by phone?
Cynthia McDonald, you may provide your public comment.
Go ahead, Ms. McDonald.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. Cynthia McDonald, Costa Mesa resident. There are so many deviations to get this project to fit into the 40 units. So many deviations for such a small parcel. It really does resemble sardines lined up in a can. The poor residents buy condos next to Herb's garage are going to love the noise of air wrenches, plus all that noise and air pollution that's going to flow over from the freeway, Newport Boulevard, and Victoria Street, all of which are backed up at various times of day. These are for sale units. That's about the only good thing I can say about them. They aren't any affordable units. It's a truly peculiar location for housing. It's not really walkable or bikeable. The nearest services are a really old grocery store and a liquor store. Crossing Newport Boulevard at any point, even with any improvements Caltrans might suggest, is risking your life. I visit the area often, and the ability to turn out of businesses at this intersection is such a nightmare that I drive through adjacent parking lots to avoid it. What happened to the visioning and the planning that was supposed to come with Measure K? What will the new zoning be? Who knows? It could possibly be 10 or 15 stories. Was that, just the citizen involvement and the visioning and the planning, was that just another big lie that was told to the residents by the city council and the commission members? And yeah, we do know there'll be more residents in these units than the city thinks. Over to Baker Block and just 8 o'clock in the morning and see everybody coming out and hopping in their cars that are out on the street. I don't know what you can do here. At some point, we need to get the zoning reconfigured so there can be some predictable zoning and not just spot zoning like this in the next project. Thank you.
Thank you. Anna, anyone else?
Richard Huffman, you may provide your public comment.
Go ahead, Mr. Huffman.
Hey, good evening. I have just a couple of quick comments. I have to thank Commissioner Dixon for drawing attention to the project down Victoria on Harmony Way, which I've actually walked in there before. So it has a similar size site. It has a pair of driveways lined with the three-story single-family houses that are all 3 stories high. There's no common walls, so they're not paired homes or condos. They're probably, they may be condominium ownership. I don't know. But anyway, it's a very nice project. Similar size site has 30 units, not 40 units. And each one is separate. Like I said, no common walls. And you can Google map and actually go in the driveway and look and see where all the parking is. So every other building has a parking space in between it. And then the other space between the buildings is the walkway to the entrance, side entrance. And then down the middle is a walkway that's landscaped that you can also access all the homes with. And in the rear of it are a bunch of guest parking areas and then a common open space in the far back. So it's a very similar layout, but less, much less dense with more parking. I counted roughly about 25 plus or minus guest parking spots. So anyway, thanks a lot for drawing attention to that. So that's an example of something with less density. I'm not saying that you can't go to the higher density. I like the idea of condominium common walls. It gets you more units per acre. So good luck with this. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else?
No, there is not, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I'm going to close public comment on this portion of the hearing. Commissioners, do you have any further questions of staff? All right, let me first ask, applicant, would you like to respond to anything? You don't have to. Okay. Any more questions of staff?
Really quickly, in the staff report, was there a picture of the interior elevations? I was looking, I didn't see it.
There is not.
So does the city have assurances that it's going to look like what it's, we've had projects in the past where something comes to us and it looks wonderful. And then after negotiations with staff, 2 years later, something goes up that doesn't look anything like what we approved. So part of on this is that we're not going to have the landscaped drive aisles and we're not going to have all that stuff. So that common area, which with the driveways will in effect be in to a certain degree, it would be nice to understand if that's going to be, because looking at some of the representative elevations in here, it's not entirely sure if that's just a solid wall with windows or if there's a break or if there's some other sort of articulation, and if that's a requirement when it comes back to the city. Just because if you look at, you don't want, and I don't think the developer wants something that's ugly, but you don't want a canyon of just stucco and whatever the stuff is with a few windows. So my question is, if we don't have an opportunity to review the design elements of that interior elevations, then it's kind of difficult for us to make findings regarding design elements. So do we have that, or do we have any assurance of that, or is it going to be generally representative of what was presented in the photographs?
So generally, we look at the floor plan layout where bedrooms, bathrooms, living spaces are located. As far as the renderings of the interior, there's no...
Not of the interior, of the exterior.
Oh, of the exterior.
On that interior drive aisle.
Okay,
So when you're going down the drive aisle, do we have in the elevations that you would be, if you're standing in the driveway looking at a house, do I have that elevation that I can look at and the public can look at? I just didn't see it in here.
Correct.
Okay, do you know what page it was?
Commissioner Dixon, if you look on sheet 3.1 of the plans, Victor, I don't know if you can guide them toward that.
Oh, okay.
But there are there's an elevation of all the sides of the residential buildings.
Oh, got it. Okay, it wasn't in my paper, so I apologize. Must have been, where's the handwritten page? Yeah, I don't, okay. It's not in,
Does this slide
Got it.
does that help?
Got it. Okay, cool. That answers my question. I see that. So the concern is that you don't have balconies. You're not, for lack of a better word, activating that space in a certain degree, where it's not just this dead area of concrete. There are some developments around Costa Mesa that were built years and years and years ago, where you go down to the parking area, or it's just monocolored concrete. So I just wanted to ensure that was represented here. And we do have articulation of materials and different treatments, and it's not just flat. So great. Thank you. That was my question on that. Appreciate it.
Okay. Vice Chair Zick.
Thank you. Mr. Mendez, if somewhere along the line during the construction of this project, the owner decides that he doesn't want to sell off the units as a for sale project and instead wants to retain ownership of the property, maybe even sell the whole project and have it be 100% rental, is that his prerogative?
I don't see anything that would prevent him, but I'd probably defer that to our legal city attorney.
Yeah, thank you, Vice Chair Zick. Yes, if the Planning Commission were to grant as part of this project the tentative tract map, it is a tract map, correct? Yes, the tentative tract map, that would allow for individual ownership of the units. But then, as Senior Planner Mendez mentioned, it is correct. If the owner decides not to sell them to other people, they could retain ownership for some time, or they could operate it wholly as a rental project as well. Yes.
Thank you. No more questions.
Okay. One last question from me, Mr. Mendez. The project site consists of 3 individual parcels. Were any of those parcels either individually or collectively evaluated in our housing element as an opportunity site?
They were not.
Okay. All right. I'm going to close the public hearing. Anybody like to make a motion? Go ahead, Commissioner Dixon.
I will move that we do have a suggested addition of the condition of approval that I would like to add, but I will move that, I do not have the language in front of me, I apologize, right here. I will move that the Planning Commission, based on the evidence contained in the staff report and the, do we have it?
Yeah, it's right there.
Right. That I move that the Planning Commission recommend that the City Council adopt a mitigated negative declaration and mitigated monitoring and reporting program and approve the general plan amendment, rezone master plan, and tentative tract map, subject to the conditions of approval, with the addition of a condition of approval at staff's discretion as to where to put it regarding the downstairs workspace bathroom, that it not be a full bath.
Okay. That's the motion. Is there a second? Don't all jump at once. All right. Well, if it's going to fail for a lack of a second, does somebody want to make another motion? Vice Chair Zick?
Well, I move that the Planning Commission recommend to the City Council a denial of this project and not adopt the mitigated negative deck and not approve the general plan amendment, rezone master plan, tentative tract map. And if I get a second on that, I will elaborate.
Okay. Is there a second on that motion? All right. I will second for discussion. Go ahead, Vice Chair Zick.
Wow, hard to get an approval, hard to get a disapproval. So as anybody who has watched proceedings up here over the course of time, they know a couple of things about the city. We're upside down in terms of rental and ownership compared to other cities around us and compared to Orange County in general. So the proposition of a for sale project is very attractive to me on its face, as it helps us with that problem. The problem I have with this project, there's several. I generally don't comment on the aesthetics, the architecture, the style, if a project looks good or doesn't look good. That's all in the eye of the beholder, and I respect what architects do for a living, so I generally defer to their aesthetic. I will tell you, I'm not blown away by the look of the project. But what I really don't like is the extent to which we have gone, bending over backwards, to come up with a recommendation for approval. Floor area ratio, excessive. Common use open space, insufficient. Building height. Might be a good place for this kind of a height, but that isn't what the code says. Side setback problems, rear setback problems, landscape parkway, parking shortage. Okay, so we're going to count on parking going on the street. I suppose the good news is there's limited parking on the street, and after that, I don't know what people do. The garage dimensions are skinny down to fit this shoehorn project. The space between the buildings and the parking space that goes there, also narrower than what's recommended. I don't know. I'm trying to find things that I like about the project, and the only thing I like about it is that it's an ownership project, and even that is something that isn't a guarantee here. And the harder it is to sell these units, and the more turnover there is because of these design deficiencies, I think the more it becomes a rental project long-term. Yeah, somebody at council loves this project and said, yeah, put more units on it. No, put even more units on it. Well, then you probably have an approval, looking at you in the future, but it's not coming from me.
I share the vice chair's concerns about the amount of deviations, but my position on this actually stems from something different, which is the entitlement request in particular. I struggle with this, quite honestly, because we are in desperate need of more housing, and I agree, ownership would be wonderful here. And I do want to thank the applicant for responding to the council's comments last August. You definitely made improvements on landscaping and the community amenities. Where I really do have trouble with this, though, is that there's a threshold question for me, which is, why should this site be part of the overlay? And that hasn't been answered yet. What we were asked to consider here is a project on the site, but I think that the preliminary question is really one for the city council to decide. And the history of this overlay suggests that in the past, it has reduced, the city council has reduced the number of sites, and I think it's within their purview to figure out if an addition is warranted. And I just haven't heard that explanation. And in fact, I think if you look at the applicant's letter, the request isn't to add the site, it's to request deviations from the overlay. It almost presumes that this should be part of that overlay. That may seem like an odd basis for this, but if you can't get past that first question, I don't know how we get to the questions about the merits of it. And then when I look at what is proposed in the request for deviations, to me, this just isn't the overlay itself just isn't the right tool for the job. And I think we need to maintain some integrity with our planning. I do recognize, however, our zoning code does provide some difficulty in trying to get the projects that we ultimately want. But to my mind, I think there could have been a good compromise proposal based on what we do have in the code. There could have been a planned development HD, maybe a fewer units, maybe not the height, but would have been a little bit more consistent with what our code and general plan delineates. So that's my position for supporting the motion. Commissioner Dixon?
I will not support the motion, and for the simple reason is that I don't think it's appropriate to hold an applicant hostage when the city can't quite figure out what to do. I've never seen, when I was earlier on the planning commission, universally hated by everybody who did not want housing to go in because we were wrestling with the live-work units, and we were wrestling with how to get those entitled, how to get them done in a way where they're not going to create huge neighborhood impacts, yet there was always some sort of deviation from the standards. I've never quite seen such a spectacular collection of deviations from the standards. In fact, we can't even seem to, we've got two different zones or two different land use categories, and we can't satisfy either of them. So I agree with Vice Chair Zick and Chair Harlan. However, my understanding is that this went to a city council screening, which I watched. The developer went above and beyond in finding ways to make those things work on this unique, interesting site. If we do say, you know what, this is not perfect because of all of these things that are absolutely valid. However, we have a few of the things in here as far as the deviations go from a master plan's perspective, from the different ways that the zoning districts were applied and the overlays, et cetera. So this will be going to council. This is a recommendation. If this was the first impression of a project before us, I would be 100% absolutely not. It's just too outside the scope. However, this has been going on for a while, and it seems to be something that the council asked for and wants. So maybe, so that's why I'm in support of recommending that they approve it, because this appears to be what they asked for. And yes, it is in their wheelhouse. I do think that we need to figure out what we're doing with zoning, because if people don't have some sort of reasonable expectation of what can go next door or what is appropriate where, it makes planning difficult. And I know that the state has parachuted in, decided to tell us that we have to do whatever they want us to do. For instance, are these workspaces potentially going to be ADUs? I don't know. Is it going to be rental? I don't know. So the reason that I recommended approval and sending it to the council based on the plans presented and the screening and all the explanations, I don't want to, I mean, this is a recommendation to council, so it's not going to stall it.
Right.
They're going to do it anyway.
Yep.
All right. So that perhaps will change but I wanted to explain why I recommended and why I moved that we recommend it forward. And what some of my concerns were, but also sort of the rationale behind my motion. So thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Commissioner Klepak?
Yeah. I think you're having a hard time getting a second because I think everybody likes that this is ownership product, but kind of struggles with the concept of it and the mishmash of what's required. So to me, I think the issue that comes in is that condos are meant to be entry-level way to get into ownership, but when you're trying to do single-family living as condos with almost 3,000 square foot homes, and trying to also get the number of units, that's where it just becomes difficult to make all of these different things work at one time. So I'll be supporting the motion.
Okay. Any other comments by commissioners? Commissioner Martinez.
Thank you. This is a difficult one for me. I'll be honest, because it's more housing, which I do believe is good. I don't really care that it's for sale. If it was for rent, whatever, I'd feel the same way. But this site and the process that this proposal is going through, I mean, yeah, it's just weird for me. This site in particular, I mean, I'm pretty close by to it. So I know that stretch, that Victoria Place road, is not the best. It's in a very busy intersection that truly it could get backed up from Harbor Boulevard even all the way over here. It's not a great place for pedestrians to be at any of the three intersections. It's a strange place to be. The zoning that is proposed for this site, the trend seems to be that we're not going to be using that. And I don't know if in the rezoning program, if we're even going to keep that proposed zoning, considering this is the first time that it's being used. I don't know if what a better proposal, what a better zone for it would be. I think we're 3 years past Measure K being law, and we still don't have a cohesive plan for what our Measure K sites, what we expect from our Measure K sites, like this one. And now we get stuck in this weird situation where we're applying something for the first time and we're trying to figure out what any of it means. And it just sucks. Yeah, yeah. Um, this this process is just unfortunate. And I agree with the chair. I agree with Commissioner Dixon too. Yeah, I'll support this motion. It's going to go on to council anyways, but it's just peculiar.
Okay, on that note, let's call for the question.
That motion carries 5-2 with Commissioner Andrade and Commissioner Dixon voting no.
All right. Let's, Commissioner, let's take a 8-minute break, okay? Come back at 8:20. All right. Thank you.
I mean, I think an argument that you make is, I mean, you talked about like the first domino to fall, which is me, but the second domino, you're back to revisiting them.
Yeah.
Is this what you would put on it?
Right, exactly. All right, we are back on the record. Anna, will you please read the title for public hearing number 2? And Tarquin can get here momentarily.
Public hearing item number 2, recommendation to the City Council pertaining to the proposed Hive Life project, PGPA-23-0002, including a final environmental impact report, general plan amendment, rezone, specific plan amendment, master plan, vesting tentative parcel map, density bonus agreement, and development agreement for a 3-phased 1,050 unit residential development with 3,692 square foot retail component at 3333 Susan Street. Please note we have received public comments on this item. This is a call for any ex parte communications.
Okay, commissioners, any ex parte communications? Commissioner Martinez?
Yes, on August 1st, 2023, I gave a public comment when this item was presented to the City Council for general plan screening. I spoke with the applicant today, and I visited the site on Memorial Day.
Okay, Commissioner Dixon?
I spoke with the applicant over the weekend, and I have been by the site.
Okay. Vice Chair Zick?
I met with Tim O'Brien at 580 Anton, not specific to this project, but obviously relative to it.
Commissioner Andrade?
Similarly, back in April, I had a meeting with Mr. Tim O'Brien to discuss the project, and then a visit to 580 Anton as well last week.
All right, and likewise, I spoke to the applicant last week. All right, I'll turn it over to Mr. Yeager now for presentation.
All right. Good evening, Chair Harlan and the rest of the commission. The majority of this presentation, it is a rehash of what you saw a couple weeks ago, so I will be speeding through some of the slides, obviously taking more time on new information. The project site, it is north of the 405, directly east of Anderall. Across Susan Street from the project site is a residential development, Providence Park, and directly north of the site, across Sunflower Avenue, is the city of Santa Ana. The project does include applications for general plan amendment, zone change, North Costa Mesa specific plan amendment, master plan, tentative parcel map, density bonus agreement, development agreement, and an environmental impact report. The general plan amendment, it would change the land use designation from industrial park to high density residential on the 2 northern parcels and urban center commercial on the southern parcel. And it would also assign a 62 dwelling unit per acre density for the project site. The rezone would change the zoning from planned development industrial to planned development residential North Costa Mesa on the 2 northern parcels and planned development commercial on the southern parcel. The North Costa Mesa specific plan, it outlines the development standards and replaces portions of the current zoning regulation for specific parcels in the specific plan area. The amendments would change the North Costa Mesa specific plan to allow for the project in front of you. Financial analysis, it was prepared and reviewed by the city's finance department, and over the 28-year forecasted period, it did estimate a net positive revenue to the city. The master plan is, this is required for any development in the planned development zones, and it establishes the architecture and site design for the proposed development. This master plan does include 3 distinct phases, each with their own unique architecture and own amenities. Phase 1, it is the southern parcel at the corner of South Coast Drive and Susan Street. It's the smallest in terms of dwelling units, 315 units. It does include a 3,692 square foot commercial space with a public plaza in front of it. And also 538 parking stalls, 5 stories, 73 feet tall. Second phase is similar, slightly taller at 77 feet 6 inches. Again, the max height of this, it is measured to the top of the elevator shafts. Majority of the building is less than this. Phase 3 continues on the similar architectural styles. This is the largest phase with 389 units, 643 parking stalls. In terms of parking, since the project is requesting a density bonus, they are eligible for state density bonus parking, which would require 1,224 parking spaces. The project is including 1,756 parking spaces, which comes out to 1.65 spaces per unit. There's also 15 parking spaces dedicated to the retail component, which complies with the city's parking regulations. There will be short-term bike parking and long-term bike parking in every phase as well. And these parking ratios were supported by a parking study provided by LLG. In terms of traffic and circulation, a VMT analysis was conducted as part of the CEQA analysis, and additionally, a traffic impact analysis measuring LOS was also conducted for the site. There was no significant impacts found for either VMT or LOS. Open space. So the public open space for the project, it does include all of the paseos, public courtyards, the landscape perimeter, the public plaza, and also some public courtyards on the different phases. Phase 1, it does include over an acre of public open space, 58,000 square feet. There's also common open space for each phase, and this would consist of the pools and spas and areas dedicated for residents only, and then private open space. That would be the things like balconies and other private spaces. So each phase, it does include about 21% of the open space is private open space. The rest of it is either public open space or common open space. In terms of amenities for the project site, residents will have access to pools, spas, fitness centers. They'll also have access to the clubhouses, game rooms, activity areas, barbecue, roof deck lounges, and then there's some other less exciting amenities, but still beneficial for the residences, including move-in centers, co-work spaces, and then Uber rideshare lounge. And then the image that you see here, these different nodes, the different colors, it shows various activity nodes within the paseos, which will be open to the public. The pink ones are fitness nodes, so think your pull-up bars, sit-up stations, that sort of thing. The yellow nodes are games, so cornhole, foosball, and ping pong have been identified. And the blue is seating areas. Public Plaza, briefly mentioned, it is in the southeast corner of the project site. This will be open to the public at all times, and it is intended to be a connection to the retail area to really activate this corner of the project. Landscaping is provided throughout the project site, including various street trees, which comply with the city's street tree requirements. And then there's a lot of trees throughout the property, a lot of landscaping. Final landscape plan, it will be submitted as part of the building permit. And there we will make sure that everything does comply with the city code and that the landscaping is compliant with WELO and other water-saving ordinances. The tentative parcel map, it's intended to allow for phasing of the project. It also includes various easements over the project site for access and utilities. And density bonus. The application, it is proposing a density bonus application. At 62 dwelling units per acre, that results in 884 base units for the project. The applicants are providing 105 units at the low income level, which is 11.8% of the base units. Excuse me. And that would allow for a density bonus of 20%. In total, with the density bonus, that would allow for 1,061 dwelling units. The project is proposing a little less than that, 1,050. The density bonus, as mentioned earlier, it does allow for the density bonus parking requirements, which they're compliant with. And then a waiver is also being constructed for the parking structure development standards. The lower left image on the screen shows what is proposed in the parking structure. So the waiver would allow for columns supporting the roof above or the floor above to be set back 2 feet from the drive aisle as opposed to the prescribed 4 feet. And also vertical obstructions would have a 6-inch additional parking space width as opposed to the 1 foot required by code. Again, this is a waiver, and the whole intent of a waiver with density bonus is to allow for the number of units prescribed in density bonus. If the parking standards were to be applied as are mandated in our development standards, then the parking garage would become larger, potentially reducing the number of units on the site. This is a housing opportunity site. The southern portion of the Hive Live project site is, at least. As part of this, the applicant is not providing all of the affordable units prescribed. However, they are providing 105 low-income units, which is 66 more than the prescribed in the opportunity site. The city can make a no net loss finding because the project, it is deficient 68 very low-income units and 72 moderate income units. However, there is a surplus of 66 low-income units and 693 above moderate units. We also have an adequate buffer in our housing element inventory to allow for these, this. The development agreement. In front of you, you have a slide with the various terms proposed in the development agreement. This is a 20-year term with 2 5-year extensions which are possible. The development agreement does include affordable housing. It includes 105 low-income units, again 1.8% higher than what is required for that density bonus. There are also various fees which would be provided to the city in exchange for the 20-year vesting cycle. Public safety benefit fees include $1.5 million to be used by police and animal services, $1.5 million to be used by the fire and rescue services, and $1 million for bicycle and pedestrian improvements throughout the city, and $500,000 for drainage facility improvements. The DA also includes a development account of $50,000, a deposit account to cover any DA administration and staff reviews throughout the life of the project. Also includes additional EV capabilities. 20% of all stalls would be EV charging capable, and an additional 40 would be EV ready. The access to the rail trail and the paseos would be provided during business hours, basically from dusk to dawn. And access to the paseos would be provided, sunrise to sunset, dusk to dawn year round. We are also working on providing expedited plan checks to ensure that the project can continue smoothly. In addition to all of these terms addressed in the development agreement, the project is subject to fees, including the parkland impact fee, the Measure Z open space fee, traffic impact fees, fire protection system, development impact fees, and drainage fees. And then there's various other outside agencies which would assess fees, the San Joaquin Hills Transportation Corridor, Newport Mesa Unified Schools, Costa Mesa Sanitary, and Mesa Water District. The project did conduct an environmental impact report. No impacts were found to be significant and unavoidable. However, impacts that can be mitigated to be less than significant include air quality, biological resources, cultural resources, geology and soil, hazards and hazardous waste, public services and recreation, transportation, and tribal cultural resources. And mitigation measures are included, which would make these less than significant. 4 alternatives were analyzed as part of the EIR. including the no project alternative, the no project existing zoning alternative, commercial building alternative for phase 1, and a reduced density alternative. These alternatives all remain the same with no significant unavoidable impacts. The EIR was made available for public review, and we did receive comments from various agencies and groups. Orange County Public Works, Gabrielino Tongva Indians of California, the Juaneño Band, Lazo Jururi on behalf of SAFER, and Mitchell Sy on behalf of the Western States Regional Council of Carpenters. Responses to all of these comments were provided within the final EIR, and also an errata making minor changes to the EIR was included, but that does not affect the overall conclusions of the environmental document. So the staff report that she reviewed included findings for the environmental impact report. While there are no required findings for general plan and specific plan amendments, findings were included. Findings for rezone, vesting parcel map, master plan, density bonus were all provided, and then development agreement findings were provided as prescribed by City Council policy. So with that, staff is recommending the big recommendation on your screen, including recommending City Council certifies the EIR and adopting a resolution that the City Council take actions on all of the application types. So the next steps, Planning Commission can ask questions, open it to the public comment, and the applicant team is also here with their entire group, so they can be made available for questions. The project will be going to ALUC on June 19th for ALUC consistency, and then following that, it would be scheduled for City Council hearings. That concludes my presentation. Happy to make myself available for questions, and as I mentioned, the applicant team is also here.
All right.
And Michael Baker was the consultant for the EIR. They are also here in the audience.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Yeager, for that thorough but brief presentation. We appreciate it. Commissioners, any questions of staff? Commissioner Dixon?
Just a really quick, on the draft Exhibit C in number 1, it says 844 base units. I think that's probably just a typo, right? It's a draft, it's
The development agreement? Is
Yeah.
that what you're looking at?
884.
884 is the correct base units.
Yeah, it says 844 in the draft development agreement.
Understood. We'll make sure that's corrected.
And then regarding the 105 low-income units, there's a table on, sorry, I just had it. The breakdown of unit types on page 17, is there any indication of the distribution of the low-income units as far as unit type?
So that's not included at this point. However, the state density bonus law does require that the affordable units are evenly distributed through all unit types and all buildings and all sides of the buildings and all floors.
Okay.
So the city and the developer will be working through that.
Great. Yeah, I know they're going to spread them out, but I just didn't understand. I wasn't sure what the unit types would be. Okay, thank you. Those are my questions right now.
All right. Vice Chair Zick?
Thank you. Just 2 questions for you, Mr. Yeager. Could you go to page 20 on your presentation? I think it was page 20. Yeah. I'm not fully understanding where, when you're indicating that this project isn't providing the number of very low and moderate units that we're expecting, and then you indicate, but that's okay because our buffer can make that up. What buffer? We haven't built anywhere near 4,000 affordable units that the RENA says we have to. So we don't. What buffer is this?
Great question. The housing element, which was approved by City Council, it did include the RENA required number and then an additional buffer of units on top of that. The intent for that is for instances like this or other projects that come forward where they don't necessarily meet all of the income levels, number of units, whatever it may be. The city wanted to protect itself by providing that buffer, which means that the units that would be provided here, they could be provided elsewhere. If we did not have that buffer, the city would be obligated to find locations for those units elsewhere. So this isn't really a developer obligation, it's a city obligation. The table you see on the screen in front of you, it has the housing element site analysis. So that's within the housing element. These are the number of units which are prescribed for the site. So 68 very low-income units, 39 low-income, 72 moderate, and 252 above. Since Hive Live is only providing 105 low-income units, they're providing 66 additional units, so we're going to get 66 low-income units back into our buffer. While the very low, moderate, and just the very low and moderate, our buffer will be reduced slightly for those.
So I'm not trying to get more affordable units out of the Hive project. That's not the basis of my question. And I'm familiar where the reallocation was 11,760, but the housing element plan showed something like 13,000. And you're referring, I think, to that difference as the buffer. But if we never build anywhere near 4,000 affordable units, I'm not trying to start a debate, but I'm trying to make sure I'm understanding. We're counting a buffer that of units that doesn't exist unless we build them. And so far, we're not building them. And we keep talking about the buffer. And eventually, we run out of buffer, and we've never built them.
Yeah, so the entire housing element, it's meant to provide the ability for those units to be built. The city itself, we can't control developers. We can't say, you come in and build here. When they come in and propose the projects, that's when we would need to review it against the housing element.
Okay. I got you. If I'm the state listening to you, I'm looking for the wink. It's like we planned for it, but it may never happen, but at least we planned for it. And we get extra credit for planning for it. And the state goes, okay, I'll give you partial credit for plan. Okay, my other question. And I listened back to the tape a couple of times from our last meeting to this same kind of question I had. I didn't fully understand the answer. And it has to do with this thing about the potential of a 25-story high-rise on the Phase 1 parcel should Anduril extend its first right refusal. So I'm trying to understand what right exists on that parcel, and does that right include a 25-story building?
So you're referring to the urban center commercial designation, which would allow for 25 stories per the land use designation.
Yeah, and it was on page 9 of the earlier staff report, if you happen to have that.
So this, the zone change and the general plan amendment would allow for the development in front of you. Obviously, if the project didn't move forward, a different development could be proposed. However, at that point, it would still require a master plan submittal, so it would have to come back before you. It would still require whatever else it would need for the applications to make that happen. The general plan, it's not meant to be a guiding force in the development standards. It's more to provide the general direction for the city. So the urban center commercial designation, it calls out a variety of different developments that could be built, from one-story homes up to a 25-story tower, as you noted.
So it gives a developer a head start if they wanted to or needed to at some point in the future, maybe they don't anticipate it now, to put a 25-story building there. Changing the land use designation gives them a head start to be able to do that, provided they submit plans, which would be consistent with that zoning.
Yeah, provided they go through the process, yes.
Thanks. Those are my two questions.
Right. Commissioner Martinez?
Thank you. Okay, let me get started with the North Coast Mesa specific plan. And I think I asked this question last time. Housing Element Program 3C says that the North Costa Mesa specific plan should go up to 90 dwelling units an acre, I think is what I read in the staff report. So why not make it 90 dwelling units an acre with this application?
So the application before you was proposed by the developers. The housing element for the 90 DUs per acre, it was only called out for the southern portion of this project site, the southern 4 acres. The northern 8 acres was not included as a opportunity site.
Gotcha. Okay. The Paseo. I think somewhere in the staff report it said 9 to 6 on weekdays. And I just want to confirm that that's not the case.
Yeah, the conditions are dusk till dawn.
Dusk till dawn on all days.
Correct.
Okay. Somewhere else, I'm sorry, I don't have page numbers for all these questions. It said courtyard B1 would also be open to the public. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's a couple of courtyards. So a little hard to see, but on phase 2, the, oops, I don't know if you can see my mouse.
Yeah.
So right here, this is a courtyard which is available to the public. There's another courtyard over here available to the public. These are all in front of the gates, so these would be open at all times.
Oh, it's on that bottom corner. Okay.
Here.
I see. Are those counted under the definition of Paseo? So that they're always publicly accessible?
Yeah, they're included in the public open space.
Great. Okay. The DA interest payments, just wanted to confirm the mechanism. If they get their approval or they start building within the first 10 years, they pay no interest. If they start doing it on year 11, then they have 11 years of interest that's already, okay, that's how that works.
Correct. So
Okay.
Assume phase 1 and phase 2 were built within 10 years, only phase 3 would be assess the interest.
Okay. Okay. Conditions of approval. Number 25. States, what does it say? Phase 1 shall include a minimum 32 affordable units, phase 2 a minimum 35, and phase 3 the remainder. This is interesting phrasing for me. So is it possible that they fully do it in phase 1 and then just the minimum 35 in phase 2 and then nothing in phase 3?
So there's a couple of things which would have to be dealt with here. I mean, one, there's this condition, which is more an intent to show that those affordable units should be provided proportionally within each building. There's additional condition that the density bonus agreement will be worked through with the city, and that is the actual document which will outline where each unit is. So that's a condition of approval. We'll be working with the city attorney's office to get that done.
Okay. I wanted to just quickly check on 39 and 44 and make sure that those weren't important, that they're just typos.
They're just typos.
Okay. I wanted to ask about unbundled parking. I think I asked about this last time. I don't think I see it in the conditions of approval, so I wanted to ask if that was considered, if that was, yeah.
So it's not common for the city to require unbundled parking, and if the commission felt it was necessary, I would recommend you talk with the applicant about it, and if it is a condition you'd want to put on the project, you would be able to.
Okay. just for fun, on 100, is the last 6 words now in our standard conditions of approval? Palm trees shall not be used. I think this was also in the last one. So is this now our standard language?
It is proposed on this project.
Okay. Okay. Conditions of approval 102, 104, and 107 mention off-site transportation improvements. I just wanted to confirm that the buffered class 2 on both sides of Susan and the fourth crosswalk leg on the intersection at, I think it's South Coast and Susan, that will all be required as part of this project? And that the applicant will do them, not the city?
I believe so. The Transportation Services Manager can confirm that for you.
Good evening, Chair and Commission. I'm Paul Martin, the Transportation Services Manager. We actually have a condition of approval that gets at what Commissioner Martinez pointed out. Condition of approval 102. It's on page 39 of the conditions. I'll read it if you aren't there. Prior to the first final inspection or C of O, the applicant shall submit a detailed plan to transportation for review and approval to design and construct a buffered Class 2 bike lane with green bicycle markings on both directions of Susan Street between Sunflower and South Coast Drive.
Okay, so based on the word construct here in 102 and install in 104, the applicant will be in charge of doing that work, right?
That's right.
Okay, thank you. Let me... Those are my questions. Thank you.
All right. Vice Chair Zick.
Mr. Yeager, I need to circle back on this. All the diagrams of this project show 3 phases of this apartment complex. And what I gather from the staff report is that the phase 1 is going to be built first. And that's the phase that is being built in the urban center commercial designation. The primary reason for that designation is because it's mixed use or because of the possibility of Andrel wanting to do something different than an apartment building?
I wouldn't say either of those are primary over the other. They are both reasons why this was selected. The designation would allow for the mixed-use development. It would allow for primarily residential development, or it would allow for the primarily commercial development.
Is this phase 1 parcel a part of Measure K?
Yes, the entire property is.
So if a 25-story building was proposed on that parcel, the approval for that would not be subject to Measure Y. Is that correct?
That is correct. It would have to go through the entitlement process.
And is this the only land use designation that could be used for parcel 1 as they're currently proposing it with the apartment and the, I guess, small amount of retail?
This was the most logical choice. There were potential other options, but this one fit all of the requirements.
What would be another option?
I mean, planned development residential would allow for residential use, but it would not allow for the potential commercial use going in. Planned development commercial allows for primarily commercial, but only allows for complementary residential. So, I mean, those would be the two logical choices. So they both kind of miss a part of what is required for the project.
Under this urban center commercial zoning, is a 25-story building approval, would that be a by right development?
No, the project would have to go through the entitlement process.
Okay, thanks.
Right. Any other questions of staff, commissioners? All right.
I just had a really quick thing. I think I heard a couple of times that the paseos would be open dusk to dawn. I think what you meant was dawn to dusk.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
That's good catch. And just to go back to Vice Chair Zick, it would also, not only would it be the master plan, the North Costa Mesa specific plan, which is being amended here, it calls out the max height for the property. So that would have to be amended again, another legislative action.
Commissioner Andrade, did you have a question?
Just wanted to clarify, the first time we heard this, we had an opportunity to see the kind of the process that the developer has outlined for these affordable units and notifications on should an individual make above the amount that's recommended. I just wanted to make sure if we were able to update and make sure that whatever the developer has outlined meets our renter rights and protections that the city has established.
Yes, and that would be something why the city attorney's office would be involved in the final drafting of this document.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
All right, last call. All right, I will open the public hearing and ask the applicant or applicant's representative if you'd like to come up. And let me ask you first, Mr. O'Brien, have you read the staff report and the conditions of approval, and do you agree to them?
Yes.
Okay, the floor is yours.
What's that?
Floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair Harlan and Planning Commission members. Again, my name is Tim O'Brien. I'm with Legacy Partners. Very happy to be here again and appreciate your consideration for the Hive Live project. Pardon me. Also want to thank Chris Yeager and the entire staff for their efforts. We appreciate their support for the project and their recommendation to this commission to advance the project to City Council. We hope for your approval for that. You know, we initiated the project several years ago, and it was in direct response to the housing element. There was an invitation. We raised our hand and said, we'll contribute this site to become a residential site, which made a lot of sense at the time, we thought, because given the number of units, whether we agree with those units or not from a city standpoint, state said 11,000, which means that there's going to be some fairly meaningful projects. These naturally fall just because of the land, because of the available land on the land and area north of the 405 freeway. Really, on the south side of the freeway, there's not a lot of opportunities, and the opportunities for those in those corridors are going to be more ownership-oriented versus being rental-oriented. So it's the natural conclusion is that this is where the projects that would be available for rent would be. You know, we took a long time to plan this project. You know, we had several meetings with the city. There were a lot of great comments. We did community outreach directly. Providence Park, we did 2 community outreach events that were attended. We appreciated all their comments. And then also, you know, stakeholders throughout the city. You know, I think that Chris did such a good job answering the questions and reviewing this. I think what we'd like to do, our team is here, and what I'd like to be able to do is just open it up if you have questions directly of me or our team, for those that I can't answer, that I make myself available for that.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions of Mr. O'Brien or the applicant's team? Commissioner Martinez.
Just to follow up on a staff question, I think we also said last time, 2 weeks ago, about the unbundled parking, and that's what the plan was anyways, or maybe you want to correct me on that, and
Yeah.
just...
We don't unbundle parking, we assign parking. So our tenants, so our residents are assigned to parking. Unbundled parking is just very difficult to manage, and it usually leads to arguments with tenants saying, that guy's in my parking spot. So really the way to regulate your parking is to assign that parking.
I don't know if we're agreeing on what the definition of unbundled parking is. Essentially what I'm getting at is paying for a parking stall, whether it's assigned or not, and you pay for the parking separate from your rent. It's not included within your rent.
I'm sorry. No, every unit gets a parking space. There's no charge for that. If you want another parking space, you get charged for that. But again, it's a way to regulate parking, because what we don't want to have is someone say, well, I have 2 or 3 cars, and so you have to assign a fee to it to manage that process. So one per as part of the rent, and then outside of that, then it's paid for.
Okay, that's my question.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Andrade.
So out of the 1,050 units, what is the final percentage of affordable that you're proposing?
So, Commissioner Andrade, it's 10% of the total, right? Now, 10% is totally consistent with what I, up here on the dais during the general plan screening, and then conversations with all the city council members at the time. I indicated that we were going to do a on-site 10%. Now, since then, the city adopted an ordinance, which, and that ordinance, and along with the density bonus law, would allow us to apply that to the base number. Now, what we've said is, despite the fact that we have the right to do that, we're going to forego that. That would be about 95 affordable units, right? So instead, we're going to go to the 105, which would be consistent with the 10% of the overall. Just so you know, that exceeds your code by 20%, right? So that's the answer.
Okay. Yeah. And just based on what we saw today, that it's going to be applicable for the level of low income.
Correct.
Right. Yeah. And I appreciate that. And again, much needed in our community. And I think I mentioned this before in our out of this dais, the new data shows that the real cost of living in Orange County, low income is now considered a family making $120K a year. Yeah. So at 3 digits salary, you still are considered low income. So these are our teachers, support staff in our communities. So by all means, this is most of the time highly educated folks that are now considered low income based on the average median income. So, but thank you.
Good.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, if there are no other questions of the applicant, Vice Chair Zick.
First of all, for the record, I wanted to indicate that I'd asked Tim a lot of questions when we got together.
Right.
And maybe just to put a couple of them on the record, one of the things that I had asked was, why are you building apartments and not condos? And correct me if I'm wrong in my understanding of your response. It was sort of a 2-part question or a response. One was, the property owner wants to keep the land and wants to generate revenue off of it. Therefore, it'd be apartments and not sold off as ownership. And the second is that your company only does rental property, not ownership property. Did I have that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Second thing, I was just doing some quick math, and maybe you actually have it off the top of your head. I was wondering about, of the 1,000 units, approximately 1,000 units, how many of them were one-bedroom units? And my rough math says about 67% are one-bedroom.
That's right.
Is that, okay. Got it. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
All right. If that's all, Mr. O'Brien, I'll leave you some time at the end if you want to make concluding remarks or respond to any questions from public comment.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I will open the public comments. If you'd like to speak on this item, please come to either podium. If you are on Zoom, use the raise hand option, and if you are on phone and like to speak, please press *9. Is there anybody in chambers who'd like to speak? Jay's shaking his head. Okay. Anna, do we have anybody on Zoom or phone?
Cynthia McDonald, you may provide your public comment.
Go ahead, Ms. McDonald.
Good evening again, Commissioner. Cynthia McDonald, Costa Mesa resident. What you have before you tonight is yet another project that is spot zoned, doesn't follow the guidelines of the North Costa Mesa specific plan, and requires a number of amendments for approval. The project location is in an area where there are very few services within walking distance and not even close drive by car in some instances. I'm talking about things like a grocery store, drugstore, dentist, doctors, personal care, schools. Closest restaurant is at IKEA, but those Swedish meatballs and pancakes get boring rather quick. It's a car-oriented project in an area already greatly impacted by traffic. What's the city's vision for this area? Where's the planning by the city? Apparently nowhere to be found. I appreciate what the developer is paying in fees for police and fire and the bike lanes and of course the park fees and traffic impact fees, but those fees are in lieu of providing community benefits like a fire station, park, library, storm drains. However, there are other items listed as community benefits that simply aren't. Community benefits are tangible. They're measurable promises for how this project will benefit the community as a whole in the future. They're often negotiated with the public to offset the negative impacts of a project. The rail trail, which is already built and in use, was claimed by another property owner as a CB. Affordable housing, EV parking, electrical appliance, photovoltaic panels, those are amenities, but they do not benefit the community as a whole, and they're not CBs. And then we get to the development agreement. The fee that's being paid is a standard item included in all DAs that I've ever seen. All cities request this to offset the costs incurred by the developer and the administration of the DA. It's not a CB any more than a traffic impact fee or grading permit fees are. What's unique to this DA, and in a very bad way, is the term. 20 years with 2 5-year extensions is not a common term. The city of Los Angeles gives a developer 3 months to get a project going. In Newport, the term is 10 years, and in some cases, 5 years. Because some of the fees will be deferred until the certificate of occupancy, the city could be waiting for many years to get the fees. If you want housing to be built, make that term a lot shorter. Make those fees payable at the issuance of the first building permit. Do not be the developer's banker. Thank you.
Thank you. Anna, anybody else on Zoom or phone?
No, there is not, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I'm going to close the public comment portion of the hearing. Commissioners, do you have any further questions of the applicant? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Actually, Mr. O'Brien, if you'd like to come up, you can. If not, okay. I'll close the public hearing now, and do we have a motion? Motion by Commissioner Martinez.
I move to approve the staff recommendation and amend condition of approval number 6 to say Arts Commission instead of Cultural Arts Committee.
Okay, is there a second for that motion? Second by Commissioner Dixon. Mr. Martinez, would you like to speak to your motion? Excuse me,
Yes.
Commissioner.
Yeah, I think that this is a good project. I think that this will provide 105 low-income units and 1,050 units total. That's very needed in our city. It meets our IHO, which is great. It provides more open space in our city. It will have these paseos, it'll have that plaza, the other courtyard. That's fantastic to see. It'll connect to the rail trail. It will provide more public art in that plaza and maybe within the building itself. For the City of Arts, I'm very happy to see that. Some of these other benefits that are in here are very nice, and they're not, they're not tangible. They're not public art. You won't be able to maybe see them. But for example, the electric appliances one, for my job, it's something that I look at a lot, is building electrification and the air quality impacts that will result from not using gas appliances. I think that's a fantastic benefit to be having an all-electric development and bringing in solar power and EV parking. That's wonderful to see. Have healthy homes and good interior air quality. I think that this is a very nice project. It'll really liven up that area. And I'm, after having toured 580 Anton this morning, I would be very excited to tour this project when it opens. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Dixon.
This is a good project, and I have 580 Anton to go off as far as this particular developer and how they do their projects. I would like to see ownership, but the opportunity to develop this project came along, and this developer took it up and has put together a pretty good project. I think the fact that it is a car-centric project acknowledges reality. There are adequate number of parking spaces, and there's a good road system in the area. North Costa Mesa specific plan was designed for, if you recall, back in 1991, I believe, we had a number of high-rise developments that were approved as part of the, the plan for North Costa Mesa specific plan. So, this area is rife for housing, and while we would like to see ownership, it probably would not have worked on this particular parcel with these particular potential limitations. And what we have here is nothing of this size is going to be perfect, but it is a good project, and I think that it's one that I can support for a lot of the reasons we've talked to at the last meeting as well. But I do like the continued access to the rail trail, the expanded access to the rail trail. I also note, and I asked at the screening or our comment study session on this, about the open spaces and the sort of the walking around spaces and just the ability to sort of be in some place that's not feeling crowded and overwhelming. Our house is being remodeled. We're living in an apartment right now. And so I have I remember now what apartments are all about and and what makes a good complex and what's a bad complex. I think this particular complex has most of the requirements for making a good complex for the people who live there. I will note on the low income, according to HCD this year, Orange County's low income single family household or a single person household is $95,000. So yes, it's low income. Moderate is, or a 4-person household, I believe, is, I just had it, I apologize. Doesn't matter, I'm not gonna look it up. A 4-person household is considerably more. Regardless, the fact that low income is now $95,000 speaks to the condition of the housing market. So while there are a significant number of units for rent in Costa Mesa, I believe 1,200 the last time I looked, we do need some good quality housing that folks who are, teachers and firefighters and just middle-class folks can afford a lot better. So I think this is a good project. I am going to support it. I would like to see ownership, but here we are. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, any other comments? No? Vice Chair Zick.
I'll start by thanking again Mr. O'Brien for taking time out of his schedule to show me what was a very beautiful project over 580 Anton. I think seeing it in person and understanding what it really is helped contextualize what this project is likely to be. I'm impressed by what this project looks like. I'm impressed by the thought that went into it, and you've gone and spoken about that in great detail. I'm impressed by the amenities that this project includes for its tenants. I think if I was looking to rent an apartment, this would be a place I probably would love to live. I understand that. To call it a great project, I think I would call it a great project. To call this a great location, I wouldn't do that. When you indicated that the city said, hey, we've got a big nut to crack here from the state, looking for volunteers, and you raise your hand, I think that's admirable. I think that's great. But that's no substitute for good planning, and I don't fault your team at all for its lack of planning. You own a piece of land, you have an opportunity to put something there and have a good business result from it. That's kind of what the free market's all about. But I think from a municipal standpoint, I think we have not done the level of planning that is needed in order to be able to say we should have tens of thousands of new residents north of the 405, where we have no parks, where we have no schools, where we have no stores. We have no community north of the 405. I ask people that I socialize with, what do you think about this project? And I ask them about another big project that's also north of the 405. And I get a curious response from them. They say, you know, I never really go up there, so it doesn't really matter to me. That sounds like a person that doesn't go to the ballot box too. It's like my vote doesn't really count, it doesn't really matter. That's not what community is. That's kind of what NIMBY is. I'm in my little bubble, and what happens outside of that, I really don't care until it's too late, and then I care a lot. I avoid Harbor Boulevard. Why? It's too crowded. I've got cut-through streets I use. I'm sure the people on Country Club and Geisler, I'm sure they just love that. Gibraltar, I'm sure they love that. These are all my favorite cut-throughs. I shouldn't put it on the record, but I don't need to. I have good company on all these cut-throughs. Projects like yours force people to do that. Community benefits, this is all part of what the council and the city manager and whoever, they negotiate that with you. I've never liked euphemisms. If you call it a community benefit, I expect it will benefit the community. These things aren't really community benefits from that standpoint. That's, in a way, that's part of the marketing of it, and I get that. That's part of the business. But just from my opinion, it's not a community benefit. The rail trail that already exists, you're not putting it there. Another project said, well, we're connecting to the Santa Ana River with the trail. There's already a trail connects to the Santa Ana River. That's not a new, but you know, take credit for it if it helps you. I'm fine with that. Paseos, they're open to the public. That's nice. It's nice of you to do that. I'm not sure I'd ever say to my wife, hey, Let's spend the afternoon and go walk around through this apartment complex. I don't think she'd say yes. I have a hard time getting her to say yes to go to a real park, a real nice place. So it's nice that you're doing that. That's a benefit to the residents. The fact that it's open to the public, that's great. It's not gated off. That's fine. That's nice. I'd like to say I'm going to support this project. I think it's going to be a beautiful building, but there are reasons why I just can't support it. We don't have a bunch of people here from the public saying they don't like it. But I talk to enough people, and I feel like I'm in tune with what the community really wants. Of course, we'll never know with Measure Y having been killed. Council is ready to approve this thing. You're going to get it. I can congratulate you now. I just, in good conscience, can't support an approval. So I wish you the best of luck, and thank you for your courtesy and your professionalism.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? All right, well, from my end, I want to say I'll be supporting the motion. As Vice Chair Zick was talking about development in our community, I thought, I've walked in this chamber hundreds of times, generally from the corridor behind me, and on the walls we have a lot of historical photos, civic leaders, some aerial photos, and I always marvel at how this community developed, especially from a kind of small farming town. But what I marvel most at is how it's evolved over the last several decades. And what this project represents to me is not just a significant investment in the future of the community, but setting a very high standard to do that. And while things might not be in place right now, I think this project is going to serve as the catalyst to really develop the area north of the 405. And I think that's important to look at who is going to be using that in the future. I may not necessarily move into a place like this, although I think it looks like a phenomenal design. Maybe we will at some point. But I do think about my kids. I think about their friends. I think about what that future generation is going to have opportunities to do here. I don't think the design has been given as much attention as I'd like here. And I do want to compliment the applicant on really taking the opportunity and the time to develop something that I think we can be proud of. Even Vice Chair Zick marveled, I wouldn't say marveled, you were very complimentary of the design, and I think it resonates. I think it is of such a high quality, and obviously 580 Anton is an excellent model as well. I do appreciate the design, how it activates the streetscape, or is planned to do that, how the buildings land at the street. I know that's been an important consideration about how we improve our streetscapes. And a lot of this, falls on a private developer to do. So in as much as we can do a lot for public planning, I want to say I'm very excited about having someone who's made an investment in this community and has stuck through it. Developing something like this, especially at this scale, is an incredible risk. And I think you're close to the finish line here, so I'll be gladly supporting this motion. Commissioner Dixon.
Mr. Chair, if we're making a comment on the development agreement, that would be something different in the motion. That would be some sort of, because what the staff report was saying, you review the development agreement and recommend it for adoption. But if we had, like for instance, a clerical check, or if we wanted to make a comment about one of the conditions as far as what we'd like to see, is that something that the maker of the motion would have to do, or is that a separate motion?
Well, it's all one package. I mean, if you have specific comments on the DA, I think you can make those comments. But
My only comment is that, and just to reiterate some of the comments that we've heard before, I just want to read Article 2, which is public benefits, in consideration of, and this is on page 6, and in reliance on city agreeing to the provisions of this DA, developer will provide the public benefits described in Exhibit C, which are over and above those dedications, conditions, and exactions required by laws or regulations. Now, I understand that these things are benefits, and I'm not squabbling with that, but if we're going to have, maybe perhaps if it's, like a deposit fee for the city processing all that stuff, that's not a public benefit, I don't think, necessarily. But more importantly is that when we were presented with the draft, The breakdown of the $1,000,005, the $1,000,005, the million, and the 500,000 for police and fire, and drainage, and all that good stuff. So we have, this is on page, Exhibit C2. A is citywide bicycle pedestrian infrastructure, B is citywide community drainage, C is police and animal services, D is fire and rescue services. My only comment as regarding the general public benefit comment is that assuming the build out of, the fee will be used, it will be allocated by the city in its discretion, but conceptually as follows. I think it's important to lock those in those categories, not just conceptually. And I don't know how best to word that. I don't know if this is the proper forum for that, if it's something we need to bring up with council individually. That was my comment.
Sure. No, I appreciate the comment. You know, ultimately, this will be council's decision.
Right.
They will define what that means. If I think it is an appropriate comment to offer to council, whether it's part of the motion or not, it'll be part of the record, that there should be some consideration about locking that in. If the maker of the motion wants to accept friendly amendment for that, or if...
It's just conceptually, I just don't want, in 11 years, another council to view this as a $4.5 million piggy bank. I want it, public benefits that are tied to this project.
Yes, that makes sense to me. Help me word this.
Well, it would just be that under Exhibit C2, or under Exhibit C, I guess this would be Section 6, that the conceptually maybe be stricken, and something in the following, in the city in its discretion, allocate the money in the following categories, or allocate the money in the following, areas, just so that it may not be a drone, it may be something else in police services. So that's my.
Let me try.
We've seen how they shred the intended uses of money, so I think we need to lock that in.
Commissioner Martinez, before you try and wordsmith this, let me just suggest that whatever we're offering is merely a recommendation to council for their consideration. You know, we can spend a little time if you want trying to tweak this, but.
Amend the motion to recommend to the city council to clarify that the categories and the dollar amounts for those categories should be set by the development agreement ordinance and not allowed to be changed.
I agree. It's perfect.
Okay, I think that's sufficient.
It's a good recommendation. They'll work with that.
That's sufficient for our purposes at 9:26.
Okay.
They understand.
Okay. All right. Then let's call for the question. Unless there's a concern by city attorney. Ms. Tai, is there?
Yes, thank you. I was wondering, I'm just jotting down some suggested language, but perhaps striking the words "but conceptually" as follows, and recommending replacing that with "specifically for the following purposes:" .
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
It's a recommendation. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, it's as part of the recommendation.
Yes. We both agree. So.
All right. The lawyer in me wants to wordsmith it even more, but I'm gonna try and restrain myself. The simplest thing would be to say to be allocated by the city as follows. Get rid of any discretion, conceptual. Let's make this unambiguous. Sorry, Sean. All right. Is that acceptable?
Let's do that.
Okay. Okay. Now let's call for the question.
That motion carries 6-1 with Vice Chair Zick voting no.
All right. Congratulations. Off to council next. We have no old business and no businesses this evening, so that takes us to departmental reports. Mr. Yang, Public Services report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No reports from the Public Works Department. Thank you.
Okay.
Back to the chair.
Ms. Tai, anything from Development Services?
Yes, just two brief announcements. The first is an update on the Planning Commission minutes. I'm happy to announce that with the approval of the consent calendar tonight, all outstanding Planning Commission's minutes are up to date. The second thing is we will have a meeting on June 23rd with several different items. One is a small lot subdivision. Another one is the beginning of our technical code cleanup with some municipal code clarifications. And the third is we're going to bring back a Fairview Developmental Center update just to finish the discussion we were having last week and talk about next steps. So look forward to seeing the commission in 2 weeks. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Preziosi, see anything from City Attorney?
No report this evening, Chair.
Okay, I will adjourn the meeting.